This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible by TripleByte because applying to programming jobs sucks. From endless applications to countless hours of technical screens, with TripleByte, there's a better way. You do one online interview, then you get to go straight to final interviews at hundreds of companies, like from tech giants like Dropbox to exciting startups. It's like the common app for software engineers. No resume needed. You can apply now at triplebyte.com/test, and if you take a job through TripleByte, they'll offer you a $1,000 signing bonus. That's pretty good. TripleByte, BYTE.com/test.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome everyone to this auspicious occasion. It is the 501st episode of this podcast. And if you're watching the video, you know things are a little different this week. We have a panel of podcasters. I'm Norm, of course. Joining me, well, let's go down through memory lane to the first host of this podcast. To my immediate left, it's Will Smith.
Hi.
Will.
Hey, Norm.
You know that thing you do with Google Calendar where you can set what day the podcast recording is?
Look, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. I thought it was tomorrow, not today. And I know we talked about it yesterday.
Thankfully, we waited for you.
Thank you so much.
I don't think this would be an appropriate podcast if you weren't
I had
here.
25 minutes. I made it here in 25 minutes.
You did?
Yeah.
Congrats.
It was an incredible... I passed a highway patrolman.
Yeah.
Really fast.
So this is the 501st episode. We've been doing this for over 500 episodes. We've lost count because along the way we had marathon episodes. We had episodes split in multiple parts at things like CES. But for the vast majority of the life of this podcast, it was done with you and me, Will.
We were the two through line. And then the first half,
that's right.
The first 200 or so episodes.
We were also joined by our very special guest, also to Will's left, Gary Whitt.
Hello.
Gary, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast.
I'm excited to be back for this historic occasion.
Are you, though?
Not really.
Not really.
500 episodes. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously only did a very small portion of that, but there was a period when I was on the show every week for quite a long time.
Every single week.
Yeah.
But then you got Star Wars and big timed us and just, bailed out. And then I quit and then the whole thing went to hell, right?
Hey now. So over on, I've divided, the seating is very deliberate. We have the old guard, Gary and Will over to my left, and then over to my right, we have, of course, Jeremy Williams.
Hi, Norm.
Purveyor of pinball. We got titles now.
What? Really?
Titles.
You Scott Rogowski it?
Yeah. And then the surveyor of science.
Sultan.
No,
we've decided Sultan was a little provincial.
Surveyor
of science, Kishore Hari. Sweet quiche.
Oh, God.
Sweet quiche. I like that. I'm using that.
Never going to live that one down.
Thank you all for joining us. So we were discussing off camera and before, while waiting for Will to get here, the format for this episode. How are we going to go celebrate 500 episodes of this podcast?
Yeah, why are you saying this is the 501st? The title above me or below me or wherever it is on YouTube now says 500.
No, it says 501st.
Really?
The 501st.
Oh.
Yeah, we covered this last week because we tried to get together last week to celebrate the 500th episode, but we decided, given everybody's schedule and unavailability, that we would get together and celebrate the beginning of the second 500 episodes.
So I assumed you're counting episode 0. Which Norm and I recorded so that we would have a podcast feed on iTunes when we did the first episode.
So technically, if you want to go by numerically, this is probably the 502nd episode.
This is a podcast of lies.
It is, 100%. You mentioned episode 0. Let's do a little bit of walk down memory lane, because let's make that our top story, in fact.
The walk down memory lane?
Memory lane, top story?
This is very navel-gazing.
He's asking you to play a sound cue, I believe.
What is that sound cue?
The top story this week.
Oh, that one.
Top stories this week.
You should also unmute.
Keeping it real.
It's a very professional show. We're on a tight ship over here.
We didn't want to change
Top story this week.
Change what the three of you said.
I got to hand it to you guys. 502 episodes in, and it still feels like the very first show.
Well, it's all part of the magic.
It's not a basement anymore. There's natural light in here, which is the big improvement, I think. Although in the normal
I'm glad
podcast
we're not stuck
room,
in that awful closet for this one. I never liked it in there.
This show, like many other shows, has had its ebbs and flows, changes of scenery, its eras. And if we go back to, we're going to do a little bit of navel gaze. I know, Jeremy, you're not a big fan of that. But
I'm going to forgive it today.
Okay.
This is the navel gazing show.
Yeah.
If you go back to the very, very first recording, we weren't even in studio. Will and I recorded an episode 0, which it's on iTunes. It's on, Pocket Cast.
No, we recorded that in the basement at Whiskey, didn't we?
No, episode 1. So I re-listened to it. It's 28 minutes long.
Yeah, it was thin.
It was as you said in the podcast, it was an episode to be recorded so that we would have something on the podcast landing page in the CMS. Basically, it was to test the CMS.
Well, and we also needed to generate an RSS feed so we could have it on iTunes for episode 1.
That's right.
That was the other big thing.
So in starting Tested, and this goes back to the Origin Test, it's one of the questions we had all the time.
March of 2018,
February
2010. Yeah.
You had been working on it for a few weeks already.
I started in January. Yeah,
with
January
the crew.
10th.
Yep, at Whiskey Media, working on the format and the tech behind it. And of course, we were going to do a podcast. We had podcasted together before on the Maximum PC podcast.
We did 150 or so episodes of that before we left, I think?
It doesn't
Something
matter.
like that, yeah.
Something like that. Training Wheels. Jeremy produced that podcast
Most
as
of it.
well. And
We listened to the episode that involved you doing Queen remakes.
That wasn't me. I just encouraged that behavior. I did
It was
not
not
actually
good.
sing it. No, it's bad.
that was
Veronica
the 100th
did-
episode.
That was the 100th. Veronica did a lovely cover of Jonathan Colton's Portal song.
The Portal song, yeah.
Yeah, that was the high point.
Still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have put that at the beginning, but it didn't, thematically. Dan and Kat did a wonderful job. Dan Amrick and Kat Ock did a wonderful job writing the songs for that.
I didn't know they wrote that.
Yeah.
So we did an episode 0, and I re-listened to it. You can download and listen to it. And it was a total filler, right? It was catch up. What have you guys been doing? What is Will and Norm been doing before creating this new thing called Tested?
Yeah, did we
and
tell-
what was this Tested thing going to
Yeah.
be? And it's hilarious listening to that.
I think I went to Portland.
No. There was this before,
We didn't talk about
before
Portland?
any of this travel.
Okay.
Before any of that, you talked about coffee.
Yeah.
You talked about expanding the scope of covering more than just consumer electronics circa 2010.
Yeah. This
And
was
things
pre-iPad, right?
This was iPad impending. So iPad had been announced, and iPad would launch the month after we recorded that first episode. We started Tested in March of 2010, and iPad was one of the very,
March
very
20th
first
or
things
something, yeah.
That had come out.
We were rocking iPhone 3GSs at the time, right?
Yeah, this is
The
before
iPhone 4. I
had
wrote
not
the
been-
iPhone 4
had been-
review that year, yeah.
It hadn't been stolen yet? Had been...
The iPhone was stolen at around episode 10 or something of the podcast. I remember we talked about it a lot.
And it was very shortly after that Gary joined, because Gary was a big Apple fan and had gotten iPhone 4. Or you were the first person we knew who received an iPhone 4.
Well, he also had a lot of free time, which was very important.
Is that true?
Back then I had more free time than I do these days.
Yeah.
So I was happy to come in and it was, you guys were like my only social interaction that I had throughout the week.
Well, none of us had children.
No.
Yeah, now it was a very different story now. Jeez, I mean, what about that as like a big marker? None of us had kids.
Oh, excuse me. One of us
Well,
had.
I mean,
Jeremy had kids.
just us three.
Oh,
Like the three.
that side.
We're not involved in the
the original,
conversation yet.
the original Three Musketeers. None of us had kids, and now all three of us do.
So
that's, I mean, that's a big thing.
it's funny, not to skip forward, but on the ride back from the last CES that you came to with us, remember, I think it was Norm and me and maybe Wes was in the car?
Yeah, maybe Matt Braga. was along
Braga
with
flew
us.
back. He flew back to Toronto.
Okay.
So it was just I think the four of us.
Yeah, that was the pinnacle.
And the year
Of
before that was
CES
the
coverage.
pinnacle. But that year was the year that we were riding back, and Gary was in the back seat of the car DJing. As
I
was
remember.
driving. Like, we left at 4:00 in the morning, saw
After
the
an all-nighter.
sunrise in the
Yeah,
rearview mirror.
that was a fun trip.
And like, I think at that point I knew that your daughter was coming. I think we all knew your daughter was coming.
What year was this?
This would have been 2012.
Yeah, she was born in 2012.
Yeah, so she would have been like 6 months out at that point, 7
Yeah,
months out.
yeah.
And like, I
I think it was like the last hurrah. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
how I looked at it.
I remember driving across the desert with the sun rising in my rearview mirror, and Gary was playing some like chill Britpop, and Norm and Wes were unconscious in the two back benches of the bus, and I was like, "This is a moment. Things are about to change."
And so you
It's
went
like you feel
Vegas, baby.
Well, we
And
were
the
leaving
rest was
Vegas.
history?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was even better.
Well, you didn't know
actually.
you were going to have a kid at that point.
I mean, we'd been trying for a long, long
Because
time.
you were a year out at least.
Yeah, we were 4. She was conceived after the time I stood on top of the nuclear reactor and the radiation alarm went off.
That worked out.
Yeah, magic.
Had you met Danica yet?
No.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I could stay up all night with Gary at the blackjack tables.
Yeah.
I don't even play that game anymore.
Those were the days.
it's probably best.
Yeah.
I still play blackjack.
So going back, listening to episode 0, it really reminded me not only of the things that we didn't know was coming for us in the world of Tested, because it was
Yeah.
before we had met Adam, before we had met Kishore, before we were in this building, and the world of consumer technology was different.
It was
the world
all
of
about to change.
podcasting
Yeah.
was different. The world of internet content and video was very different. You had talked about on that episode how novel it was going to be to film a video.
Because we hadn't done one yet, I think.
We had not done a video. I think you did talk about doing your first video with a teleprompter and how that was going to be the new normal and how exciting that was going to be and how you would
So
prefer
wrong.
just doing something off the cuff. And guess what?
Hey, guess what we ended up doing?
Regression back to the mean.
Yeah, exactly. That was before we did that first video with the condoms in the swimming pool across from Mike Tatum's
That's right.
house.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good
And
video.
it was before iPad come out. We had done some talk on the episode about iPad. The funniest thing to me in that episode was us talking about the Dell Mini 5, which
that
was
a netbook?
5-inch Android smartphone from Dell, and how stupid we thought having a 5-inch phone would be.
The funny thing about all that time especially is that back at that point Android was still like an experiment from Google. Like there was that T-Mobile Nexus 1 and like a couple of other phones, but like it was before Samsung had really started releasing Galaxy phones in the US.
Yeah.
And even when they had at that point they were still bad.
It was made
So
by
it was-
HTC,
yeah.
that first Nexus 1.
Yeah.
I had that phone. I think you turned that phone into like a robot. You like attached it to a
We
robot.
hooked
in
it to
a
the
video.
Romo. Yeah. It was a little
It's like somewhere around here. Somewhere.
Yeah,
I
Joey
still
had
have
it.
It reminds me of that famous or infamous review on GameSpot for Alien Insurrection or whatever that Alien game was in 2000, where they said the controls are the worst part of the game. The left stick strafes you around the world, and the right stick makes you look in all directions.
And that turned out to be.
And that turned out to be the standard.
Yeah.
Well, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
So it's 9 years later.
How is that even possible?
I didn't get a chance to re-listen to all 500 episodes to pick out our
What?
favorite moments. What do you remember of the past 9 years related to what we did on the show, related to things that we had covered?
I remember the raccoons. I remember Gary's Jedi Trading Academy bit, which I think is the funniest thing we ever did on the podcast.
The podcast was a lot more serious before Gary joined. We tried to do it as a serious. I think it's spilling over from covering tech for Maximum PC. If you listen to episode 0 and episode 1, we tried to report on the news, and we tried to give some honest opinions about where we thought tech was going. And then once Gary came on, we had a lot more fun.
Mr. Non Sequitur.
And we had a Would You Rather segment at the end of the podcast.
I
every week.
don't feel like I take responsibility for any of that. It's not like I came in with all these ideas for like new segments or anything.
No, but I think just having a third person, having a third voice to bounce
for sure.
off of.
I think like a good podcast, you can do a good podcast with 2 people. I think 3 is
A sweet spot.
yeah, is a
5
sweet
is way
spot.
too
5
many,
is
though.
way too many.
Yeah, way too many.
Yeah.
Well, I'm treating this more like, all those television shows where you bounce between the mirror universe, like Dark World and Light World. Like right now, I'm back in
Wait, this is weird. I'm the Dark
2011 mindset, chatting with Gary and Will, and then now I'm back in 2019 mindset, chatting with
Serious
Jeremy
business.
and Kishore.
I mean, a lot of that was informed. As that was happening with Gary, though, the same thing was happening on the site. Like we realized that we were making that part of the problem with tech coverage at the time was that everybody was super serious about it, and it was real. Like it was old white guys with suits yelling about phones being bad, and then still recommending those phones or something. And we started doing kind of sillier stuff. We started doing the Whiskey Media Happy Hour segments where we would literally walk down to the Walgreens down the street and hit the As Seen on TV aisle and buy whatever stupid As Seen on TV gadgets they had there, and then like show how spectacularly badly they worked. I think we did the first shake weight joke that I'd never seen.
Oh, yeah.
Memeified before
before-
memes were and GIFs were a thing.
Yeah, before, I mean, if it hadn't been behind a paywall, thousands of people would have seen it.
Did Whiskey Media come to you guys and pitch the concept of Tested, or did they ask you to come up with an idea?
So I had known, so I met Dave Snyder. I'd known Mike Tatum for years, the business guy. And I met Dave Snyder at South by Southwest when we were on a panel one time together. And Dave was the designer. He was one of the founders of Comic Vine and was one of the people that built the core tech that made the whiskey stuff happen. And of course, I knew like Brad and Jeff from seeing them at events over the years from Giant Bomb. But I saw what they were doing at Giant Bomb with video and really good editorial content, and then also like building a platform for users to contribute to. And was really excited about it because that was a novel thing back in 2007, 2008 when they started.
And the promise of a wiki.
Yeah,
Where's my wiki?
where I still don't have that fucking wiki.
None of us ever got the wiki.
But
So the idea was to make
A database.
Giant Bomb for tech.
I mean, the idea was to make a tech site that used the Whiskey Media platform. It wasn't necessarily Giant Bomb for tech because that's, but yeah. So I had harassed Dave and Mike for years and was like, hey, you guys should really do a tech thing. And they decided they were going to do anime and a bunch of other stuff first. And finally I was like, hey, look, I'm looking for something to do. The Maximum PC business is good, but I feel like working on a thing that has PC in the title in 2009 is probably not where I want to be. And I'm going to go find something else to do. Can I come in and talk? And I came in and I pitched him on the thing. And then we talked back and forth for a couple months. And I guess around Thanksgiving, I told Future I was leaving and would stay through CES for them if they wanted, and stayed through CES, took a week or two, and went to Portland and had a vacation, and then came back and got started on the site.
I remember the pitch. It was at CES that year, CES 2010.
2010, yeah.
And I remember we were in the Planet Hollywood at the Mexican restaurant there, and you sat me down and said, I'm doing this thing. I'm leaving the magazine.
No, that was at the Shabu place in West Portal.
Maybe that was, you're right.
Yeah, I was.
You're right. Yeah.
Because I told our
right.
bosses at Maximum PC, and they were like, hey, have you told Norm yet? And I was like, no, but I'm going to tell him tonight. And they were like,
your
okay.
pitch was, Norm, if you work with me, you'll never have to buy a phone again. And I said, oh, that's a good proposition.
Well, that's right up there with you want to make sugar water for the rest of your life, isn't it?
It was a pretty good pitch.
And at that point, circa 2009, I was already addicted to phones.
And it was either that or go to business school. Because that's, I think, what your parents wanted you to do.
Yeah.
You were still considering going to graduate school?
Absolutely.
Wow.
He had come to Maximum PC.
He still is right now.
So just to be clear, Norm came to Maximum PC and immediately figured out how to generate a lot of traffic with very little contribs budget on the web at Maximum PC.
Turns out you had to do that.
Yeah, it turns out it's an important skill, and was like we grew Maximum PC from nothing to a real substantial site that then Future squandered as soon as we left.
Well, the big thing with the wiki, right, which ended up not being as important in any of the internet as ever we thought back in 2010, the idea of a massively some user generated but a big database that would do well in search engines for traffic.
The great Wikipedia is
extremely
Wikipedia
important, absolutely, but financially stable, not really. And there are some the fandom site, which there's some UGC stuff that does well, but the whole idea, the reality behind it was that it was about the community of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was less about the pages and pages of content and filling out a database that people could find, and it was more about building a big forum or big community of really devoted fans and passionate people, and that still holds true today.
Yeah.
Right, Gary, you do Kind of Funny, like you know better than anyone else that organization runs on the love of its fans.
The best friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that really, and this is before Kickstarter, before Patreon, before any of that. And to this day, from Twitch streamers to YouTubers to even big publications and traditional media outlets, a huge part of the business model is direct interaction with their dedicated fan base. And we got a taste of that, and we really learned about the value of that when we started this, working with the folks at Giant Bomb.
Well, and then that stuff when we started doing the premium sub thing in 2011 or late 2010, I guess, and did the first Big Live show and the happy hours. Like we did an 8-hour or 10-hour live stream that was basically a pledge drive to get people to sign up for this, to get people to give us money for content on the internet, which was like in 2010, shocking. people are like, why the fuck would I ever pay anybody for something on the internet? The internet's
Still shocking
free.
now.
Right. I mean, I'm still surprised people pay money for stuff on the internet.
Says the guy who did a Kickstarter.
I did a Kickstarter. Yeah. Well, you did too. Yeah. But like, if you look at the things that have changed in a huge way, Kickstarter and Patreon, both, like when Kickstarter started, we were like, oh, this is weird. So you pay for it and then they go make it and it may or may not work out. And then people have built like really massive, successful businesses off of that. There's been dark stuff that's happened with apps. You know, if you look at like what is it, the gig economy and what's going on with that stuff, it's kind of the dark side of the Kickstarter and Patreon model, where you can build a business for yourself or an income for yourself that's outside of a normal 9-to-5 job, but it may or may not work out well for you.
I started watching this podcast in particular when you started the Octobercast, and I have to say, I never thought I needed the content where I watch people slap Will in the face, but that seemed to be like a key element of what made that work. And that was your like 24-hour telethon.
And
it's very popular.
Octobercast was born out of the podcast getting longer and longer. Like when we talk about episode 0 being 30 minutes, I think if you listen to the old Max PC podcast and even the PC Gamer ones, they were around half an hour to an hour at most, because these were the fun things we did during the lunch break in between shipping a magazine. And
our bosses yelled if we went longer than 30 minutes.
It was a marketing tool in support of the core product. And when we started This Is Only Test, we got longer. And one of the lessons we learned from Ryan Davis was that you could go on, if you kept it a regular schedule, you could go on for as long as you wanted. People would listen. And when Gary got on, we started doing these longer and longer segments. We would do the full list of things that we'd want to talk about in an episode, and then go for an hour after that, after the ending closing credits. And I think episodes got to like 2.5 hours and 3 hours. And I think one day we were eating lunch. I was like, could we do 24 hours?
Was that a Grumpy's conversation?
Nonstop podcasting.
You remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I barely remember the Oktobercasts themselves.
You were the sleepiest of us.
I was
Oktobercast.
struggling to survive those 20. I certainly couldn't do it now.
And now it's a normal thing. People do marathon gaming sessions all the time.
Yeah,
people
Desert
do it on
Bus
Twitch,
and
just
Extra Life for Kids and all that stuff.
Yes.
How many did you do?
We did 3.
And were they all benefits?
Yes.
Child's Play, Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross, maybe?
No. It was Doctors Without Borders. It was EFF.
Oh, yeah,
It was
EFF.
for bits for kids or for, we were supporting the bits.
Child's Play, it was always Child's Play. And then we added EFF and Doctors Without Borders later on.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it.
And the first one we did in the old basement, we had an office down in the financial district in San Francisco, an old building that looked like an old wine cellar. And we had guests. We did have guests.
We always had, the guests were the key to Oktobercast. So I did an extra live stream last fall that was 24 hours, and it's way harder if you don't have somebody new coming in every hour. Because when you have somebody new coming in every hour, you have fresh energy that you can vampire off of. So like we had the Idle Thumbs guys came by,
right.
Veronica Belmont came by, Ryan Block came by, Patrick Norton from Techzilla and Tech Thing came by, and they would bring in stuff to like show and tell basically. So we would talk about the stuff that they wanted to talk about, and then
as
eat donuts and stuff.
We went on the second and third years of Oktobercast. We had to do more gimmicky things. We had a whole VR was a part of an Oktobercast.
Yeah.
I still remember you playing like Euro Truck Driver or something
Yes.
in VR.
Truck Simulator on the DK1.
Oh God, you were so sick.
DK1?
Oh
the
yeah.
DK1.
Weren't you leaning your head out the window?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they modeled the neck.
It did that?
It did.
It was so bad.
And there was a bucket next to me for puking.
Yeah, I remember Norm being miserable during that.
You made it like
experience.
30 minutes. I was really amazed.
Was not long. It felt a lot longer.
Yeah.
I think I was stuck in an off ramp. I couldn't do a
you
4-point
couldn't
turn.
back up. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done with this. But the important thing for Oktobercast was the starting time. That was the big point.
Yeah,
of
and that
discussion.
changed over the years.
Right.
Well,
were we gonna? Because
Wasn't it like noon? We did
The
like
first
6
year
to
we did
6, and then
noon.
it was noon to noon.
yes,
There were
and-
different start times.
and the
there was
idea
a lot
between
of
6 to
discussion over
6.
like what was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
right. And we're talking about this is 8 years ago now. I mean, 7.5 years ago, we would sleep in, have a lot of energy, and go from 6 p.m. go over to get the midnight burn done early,
Yeah.
and then be revitalized.
That was a terrible idea.
That Saturday,
Terrible idea.
And I think that didn't work. Yeah, noon to noon was a lot better.
6 to 6 a.m. Like 10 to 10 is the one we did the first year, I think. Mm-hmm. And that was great.
10 what?
10 a.m. to 10 a.m. Mm-hmm. And that, like, we came in, like, missed traffic, got everything set up, put the headphones on, sat down, and we had like a normal work day, and then we had 2 more normal work days after that.
Could you do it again?
I did it last fall by myself. Yeah, it's fine.
It was kind of.
I do it right now. You want to do it right now? Let's go. Let's dance.
I watched some of that, and there was some late night descent into madness for Will.
The morning, there was a period of time in the morning this fall that it was like we were playing PUBG at like 9 o'clock in the morning after I'd been up for 25 or 26 hours, and we got chicken somehow, and I was playing really well because I was just completely incapable of human thought. It was just pure instinct. Which is what happens.
That's an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's fun about doing the long podcast.
When you say you got chicken, it means you won.
We won we killed 96 other people.
That's impressive.
You know.
Well, you didn't kill 96 other people.
We killed the people who killed the other 96 people.
It's like Highlander, right?
All that matters is that last shot, Gary.
I know. I remember.
Before, I think Tested even began, when I was producing the Max PC podcast, I also produced a podcast with Gary and Colin Campbell.
Oh, yeah, Game Theory.
Polygon.
Called Game Theory, who's
we
now...
had Colin for Oktobercast.
And that's when I finally met him.
Oh, really?
I was on after Colin, and I'd never met him when we did our show.
Were you on an Oktobercast?
Which one were you on, Jeremy?
You went way down the Rolodex, and you finally brought me in. And I don't know. The third one.
Were you in the basement or in the old office?
The
last office.
This is funny because now we reversed the
That was
roles.
the third
Now
one.
you're the first person we call, and Gary's the last person we call.
Yeah.
We'd be remiss not to mention Joey's contributions to Oktobercast. Joey, our producer, who ran all the live mixing and the streaming to YouTube, because it was live streamed to YouTube. People forget Oktobercast. So it was the first time we had real live Lego with friends Lego competition building. But Joey set a personal challenge to do 1,000 push-ups over 24 hours. And broken that, divided into 24 segments, I think, which ends up being like 40 push-ups an hour.
His arms, he was broken at the end of that, but he did it.
And he did it, and he had a clicker, and I believe we still have that clicker
it was on the shelf
somewhere
for a long time. Yeah,
where he did over 1,000 push-ups in 24 hours.
Our first producer, Anna Herc-Robles, was a huge part of those early podcasts too. Like she moved to New York, I think, at end of our first year, middle of second year. But yeah, she was there. And
she produced your podcast?
She didn't produce the podcast, but she did all of the video. Like she was the Joey before Joey.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she moved to she like personal life stuff, wanted to move to New York, and I think she works for a laptop now.
I think we didn't give enough due to Jedi Training Academy, which is probably the most popular segment that's ever aired on the show.
I don't know. I think there's like a handful of standouts. The raccoons thing was very popular. Jedi Training Academy was popular. There's a handful of greatest hits.
Well, you've since taken your daughter to do the Jedi Training Academy.
She actually went and did it. Yeah, she really did it.
How did it work out?
It was great. She got to fight. She got to fight Darth Vader, and she didn't. I mean, she was a couple of years younger then, so I don't think she didn't really know who Darth. I was actually worried that she would be too afraid, but she got up and she did it, and it was great.
Did she go for the crotch like you taught her?
It was. I've got a video of it somewhere. It's sweet. She got to fight Darth Vader. It's actually, she's so little and she doesn't really get Star Wars yet. She's still very young. It was more, it's one of those things where like it's more of a thrill for the parent than it is for the kid.
Yeah.
Because you go, oh my god, my kids. Because I want to do it. I think the whole point of one of the things that got me onto that Jedi Training Academy rant was talking about how they should let grown-ups do it. Like it would be I want to do it. Like why is that only for kids? They should let the man-children do it as well.
And just to be clear, when Disney called you to come write a Star Wars for them, did that come up ever or no? People always ask.
No, it did. When it was announced that I was going to be working on Rogue One, people went and dug up. They started Googling me, and they managed to dig up a bunch of like my Star Wars related embarrassments. I don't do this anymore, but many years ago when I was young and dumb, I used to hang out on a bunch of different message boards. And they found all my old posts that were bashing the prequels and the special editions. I still stand by all of those criticisms. And they found Jedi Training Academy and dug that up. And I was like, for 5 minutes, I was worried, like, oh, is this going to be a problem for me? And I remember talking to the PR people at Lucasfilm, the publicity people, saying, is this an issue? And they're like, don't worry about it. And it was fine. The Jedi Training Academy thing is still, I think, pretty fun. I don't know how well it's aged.
It's aged pretty well.
It's aged pretty well. So
Yeah.
I took my 8-year-old to Disney World 2 months ago, and we signed him up for Jedi Training Academy, and we're in line in one of those heinous lines. And I tell my wife about that bit, and my son overhears it, and he doesn't want to do it because he thinks Vader's going to kick the shit out of him when he gets on stage. So he gets terrified, and he's terrified of like Star Wars stuff for like half the day
Nice work,
because of
Keish.
that story. So it still lives on.
You can find it. I guess if you go Google it, you can. There's still it's immortalized on YouTube for anyone who wants to go back and revisit it. Again, I haven't listened to it in many years. I don't know how well it's aged. I just remember it was a popular bit at the time.
Yeah.
It was so popular that the YouTube video you're talking about is animated. On one of the listeners.
Oh yeah, somebody
the
put
audio.
together like an animated
Like a
accompaniment for it.
lamination,
Yeah.
Yeah, like an old Flash video.
They did that. They did it for that, the squirrel video, and a few others.
What was the squirrel video?
You know,
Sorry, the raccoon video.
Raccoons, yeah.
Yeah.
The squirrel was when we were switching offices between as we were transitioning and starting to work with Adam. We recorded a few of these episodes in your
A
house.
lot. We recorded like a
Will.
pretty good dozen of them.
And you would always refer to the squirrel and the bird feeder.
There was
stealing food from the bird feeder outside in your
Single
backyard.
black squirrel that no matter what tools I put around the bird feeder to keep from getting on the bird feeder, the squirrel could ninja his way. Like he would jump 6 feet from the fence onto the bird feeder and knock all the seed out, smash the feeder. That's a bad squirrel.
And now the dubstep intro makes sense.
He's dead now. The squirrel.
Oh yeah, that is the greatest hits. Yeah, we learned also early on, and this is where the Star Wars Training Academy stuff came in. Is once Gary got in mode, we just let you go.
Yeah.
We just let you riff.
Like our goal was to get you to set you off somehow.
Yeah, I used to enjoy. I do it every now and again on kind of funny. I will occasionally go on if you catch me in the right mood, I'll go on a bit of a rant.
You feeling
The grumpy old. And it's one of those things. It's one of the few things that I get better at as I get older. As you get older, you get worse at pretty much everything. You're physically slower, mentally slower. But the grumpiness. That's the one thing that improves with age, like a fine wine.
You've been kind of a grumpy old man since I met you, though. In fairness,
I know, but now I feel like I'm really aging well into it.
You've earned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's rubbing off on Jeremy.
Yeah, I find that the confidence with which I am grumpy has improved greatly.
Well, you've earned it.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more you've earned your
Right.
cynicism and your grumpiness.
Nothing more knowledgeable and confident than a middle-aged white guy. That's what I always
I don't
say.
really think of you as a grumpy guy, though, Jeremy. You strike me
I
as
did well.
as quite
Well, there's this
chipper.
new segment you're going to love.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is the Jeremy rant.
I was chipper for as long as possible.
He just can't sustain it
It's gone
anymore.
straight down.
You have
Yeah.
teenagers now, right? Almost.
Very close. I have a preteen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
12
that'll do it to anybody.
I'm looking at their thumbnails from the old episodes of This Is Only a Test, and I'm looking through our old offices. We recorded in the basement in that small white room.
Oh, I hated
Right.
that room.
It was
So
small-
sweaty.
I'm wearing a tie and a dress-up shirt.
You wore dress-up shirts all the time to that office.
God,
Yeah,
what
you-
a pretentious
I remember that.
prick.
No, you were okay. It was your
oh,
bed.
why-
You had a costume.
Why were you doing that?
I think
You wore
I
the
don't
skinny
know.
ties.
He wanted to
Yeah.
impress Will.
That's right.
With his
that's right.
stick-to-itiveness.
Professional.
There were sometimes girls there.
There were never.
There were never
There were
girls
never
there.
girls at the
Two
test
girls.
office.
Ever.
What's wrong with being well turned out? There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think I took it too seriously.
No, you look good.
Yeah.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Jan. You could use a little bit more of that now, hoodie man.
I know. No, I have a kid. I'm
No,
good.
no,
I'm good.
no. This is the time. Look, this is the time you're going to determine the rest of your life. Look at the rest of us. You still have time. You can pull back. You can get the skinny ties back out.
They would not wear as well.
No. Avery could swing on them though.
Any other big things? Oh, God, there's so many moments from the trips. The CES. Let's talk about the CES stuff
Yeah, the
because we don't
CES stuff was good.
I haven't been to CES in 2 years. You haven't been. Thank you. Well, I know. Finally, you haven't been in 5 years.
2015 maybe was the last time I went.
Yeah, Garrett. The last time you went was it that
Was
that
when
road
we were
trip
at Planet Hollywood,
time?
right?
2013 probably, right? 2012.
And
Whenever, yeah.
Yeah.
When we used to go to CES, we were able to get a big suite at the PH Towers.
So hold on, we should back. Like the mandate was make as much video as you can. Here's like $6,000, which sounds like a lot of money. Except the hotel was $300 a night for a single room.
Now, I mean, we went all out. The second year we went to CES with a big crew. We brought 3 producers with us. We rented a giant white van. We live streamed the drive.
Both times we live streamed.
Oh yeah, I remember
right
that.
down to CES, over to
leaders.
Tehachapi Pass, and loaded into. We got a really nice suite at the Planet Hollywood. It was like a 3-room suite where the center room had this big red couch, right? And we would then bring our tripods or our cameras or our big desktop computers and people checking us in were like, you guys are making porn, right?
It was very I remember the decor of that room and that whole complex was very kind of tacky. It was very 80s, wasn't it? Very kind of garish. And
it was like science fiction set.
The best way to describe it was the bathroom was all black. The toilet seat was black.
It was like an 80s toilet. Bachelor pad. It was all leather and chrome and just
leather
cheesy
and
as
chrome.
shit. Yeah,
vinyl, man.
But it looked good, and we had the Vegas Strip behind us, or at least some part of Vegas with the lights.
Well, we broke the whole room down. We would get there. We took the sofas were all like bolted into the wall, and we just unhinged
everything, and reset it up, around, and made it like a late night set, where we would then every night after CES we'd live stream for 2 or 3 hours
sometimes,
and bring guests over who were in town for
Michael
CES.
Pachter came by.
I remember Mark Rain joining us.
Did we have Mark Rain?
Yeah, you weren't there when Mark Rain was there.
This is like Mark Rain.
He was a bit drunk and he went on a bit of a rant, as I recall.
Yeah. We would kind of like talk about what we did all day, and then Gary would tell us how his gambling and buffet went.
Yeah, because I was there. I wasn't doing any reporting from the show. I wasn't there to work at all. I was happy to hang out with you guys in the evening, but I was just in Vegas. I was basically on vacation.
You did the report from the Strip.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
You tell us about the secret pizza.
We'd go to the.
That's when we discovered the hiding place,
right?
Which I went back to recently, and it's still the best pizza. It's fantastic.
It's a little more expensive now, but it's still pretty good. At
Lotus of Siam?
We talk about and then after we record, we'd then make a trip out to Lotus Siam.
Yeah.
And then Gary and I would stay out late and play blackjack.
And then you'd get up at like 7 o'clock the next morning and do it again.
That's right.
Did you buy your Bitcoin on one of these trips?
No, that was Austin.
I remember you buying Bitcoin from that ATM.
That might be my favorite.
So I don't know if that was a podcast.
What was the end result of that?
This was 2012.
It was the year Danica.
2014.
2014. Yeah.
13.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. That's right. 2014. We went to South by Southwest, Austin, and Adam was the keynote speaker, and so we're gonna do that. I think we flipped a coin. I got to interview him on stage. At South by Southwest, but we were also looking for things to cover. So, as we do with all our trips, we try to pack as much. We drove out like an hour outside of Austin to meet up with the Tesla Coil guys who make music with Tesla Coils. We visited the University of Austin Supercomputing Center.
So cool.
And then one of the bits we want to do is Bitcoin was becoming a thing. And I think about to the days, because back in the Whiskey Media days, when we were in that basement, there was an engineer there,
Andy McCurdy.
And he would talk about Bitcoin.
In 2010
all the time.
Really?
They were into it.
It was your Gunther of the day.
And
he was like, look, you guys have a bunch of video cards here. You should just set this up and just run it in the closet. Nobody has to know.
And we would make a joke of like, can you
stupid.
explain what this is?
Yeah.
Like, you can't even explain what it is. And I'm sure there's video of us trying to understand what Bitcoin is. But 2014, jump 4 years later, Bitcoin had reached a peak. It reached $1,000 recently. Right before South by Southwest. And it dipped down to about $400. So we went to Austin and we Googled up, and a bar in Austin called the Handle Bar.
Yeah.
It was a mustache-themed bar.
Good bar.
Where in the back, there's a giant portrait of
Burt Reynolds. It's the Playgirl. It's the Playgirl spread
of naked Burt
Reynolds with the Sharpay on his wang.
I think I have a photo.
Does he actually have like his cock out?
No,
he has a dog laying on his dick.
All right.
It covers. It's very tasteful.
I think I have a photo of Will underneath that painting or that portrait in the same pose on some chairs.
Need to see it.
You sure? It's pretty good.
I'm quite sure.
Okay.
Direct across from that portrait was an ATM. It was one of the first Bitcoin.
It was the first one we'd ever heard of.
And there are a bunch of these now. We didn't even understand, how Bitcoin really worked. That these ATMs were run by third-party brokers that charged fees. So we
did no research,
almost no research.
Yeah.
But the idea is, could you bring cash and buy a Bitcoin at this machine? And you could. You need to set. They had all the instructions set up. Your key.
You're literally the guy saying 1 Bitcoin, please,
and
waiting for it to dispense.
And we didn't have the cash either. So I think Bitcoin was priced about $400.
$450.
$450.
Yeah.
And it was the test was, could we put cash in and get Bitcoin out?
And then we wanted to go see if we could use that Bitcoin to buy stuff at South by.
But before we could buy it, we didn't have the cash. So
wouldn't you use a credit card? Why would it need cash?
They didn't take credit cards because the credit card companies wouldn't fuck with them because they thought it was for drugs.
So we had to find a real ATM
get cash.
To get cash, pay the fee, and of course the Realty ATM had a max of like $300.
$250, yeah.
And so I said, Will, could you spot me and get in on this Bitcoin with me?
Yeah.
And I want for $150 or go halvesies or something.
We went halvesies.
I think we went halvesies.
Yeah.
And in the video, which I think might even be, I don't know if it was taken down recently or
You
something.
shot a video of buying
no.
the Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yeah.
The video
I
got taken
remember
down?
this, yeah.
Oh, because of music in the background.
Yeah, there's like I remember the thumb is Will like leaning up against the
Woz
ATM.
retweeted the video years later about the problems of Bitcoin, and we were feeding it $20 bills.
It took forever. Also, it's worth mentioning. Oh no, it's when we went to get the cash back out that I got really drunk.
So you were drunk the whole time. So the problem though was we didn't understand that Bitcoin, the ledger system, you needed to wait for it to get processed, right,
Yeah.
to spread through the network. And there was an option of would you pay the like dollar fee,
the miner's fee.
the miner fee, to get expedited, to get into the system. And we're like, we just spent $400. We're not going to pay the miner's fee.
You said that. I said it's $1. Pay the
And
fucking
I said
fee.
no. And so we said no for that. And then the Bitcoin didn't get authorized for 3 days.
Wow.
Well, no, we were able to buy tacos. We bought Bitcoin tacos.
So at some point we did have our slip of paper. We had our app. we
QR
had our
code.
QR
So wait,
code.
so what happens is you put $450 into the machine,
Yeah.
and it dispenses like a slip of paper that has a code on it.
You connect it to your Bitcoin wallet, which lives on an Android phone at the time because iOS phones couldn't do it. They wouldn't
And
let
you
you do it.
created the wallet on the machine as well.
Yeah.
Your key. You had to put your driver's license in the machine. It would take a picture of it.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I wouldn't put my driver's license in for the record.
And that would log you into a system.
This all sounds shady as shit.
So it was 100%. And it was a total South by thing. But at the end of the day, we had a wallet. We had our $450, which ended up being like $420.
was this your own money, or was this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course it was our own money.
Our own money.
What
and
kind
Will
of
and
operation
I
do you think this is?
would then walk through South by and look for places that we can buy things with fractions of a Bitcoin. We bought tacos.
If you want people to look at you like a huge asshole,
Wait,
in 2014, walk up to them and ask if you can buy an ice cream cone with Bitcoin.
How could you buy things if it took 3 days?
It took 3 days to get it back out.
I still feel dumb asking if I can use Apple Pay, which is pretty ubiquitous at this point.
Yeah, no, trust
like
me.
most places take it, but I still feel like
at
a
the
dick
end of the
asking
trip, we
for it.
wanted to
The
get the
ice cream
cash
lady
back
was not
out.
Got it,
impressed.
got it.
And we couldn't get the cash back
Got it.
out.
Hold on.
But you could spend Bitcoin.
Look, that was one of the best afternoons I've ever spent in Austin, though, because we went there. You signed into the machine to try to get our money back. And while you were doing that, Danica and I started drinking, and Joey. And across the street from the handlebar that afternoon, they were demolishing an old parking garage with jackhammers on the end of excavators, like huge jackhammers. And there were sheets of concrete were coming off 20 feet deep. It was like... it took maybe 2 hours for Norm to give up on getting his Bitcoin back, our cash back.
Wait. So why did you
Yeah,
decide
hi.
you wanted to get your cash back?
Because we were done with the experiment. It was stupid.
Yeah,
we
we were
bought
done
our
with the video.
tacos. We're done with the video. And we're like, well, if you look at this, Bitcoin's just not really moving. That's a lot of money, $200 for each of us,
Yeah.
$250 from each of us. I could use that cash elsewhere. Let's get our money back. And it was also the completing the test. Could you go not only give cash to a machine and get the Bitcoin, but also use your QR code and get actual cash out like an ATM?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bitcoin into money.
So we couldn't do that. So we left Austin, and I had
we
the
did
wallet
watch the
with
garage demolished. So
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
why am I not surprised that this machine will happily let you put money into it, but won't let you take money
really
out?
shocking, isn't it?
I had a phone. I called, like, there was a phone number, like ATMs have, like, call the operator.
Yeah.
Called the guy. I'm like, what's the deal? I want my money. And he's like, did you pay the miner's fee? What's a miner's fee? Well, you didn't pay the fee. You're not going to get your cash back. So we left Austin.
It's extortion is what it is.
What happened after that? We told the story on the podcast. I think we had like 0.995 Bitcoin. And actually someone, in order to complete the Bitcoin, someone gave me like the 0.005 Bitcoin.
Oh, that was nice.
Back
To your wallet?
To my
Free
wallet.
tacos.
Wow.
To get me to the one Bitcoin. Because the idea is that, well, let's hold, at some point, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, okay, fine, $250. Let's hold on to it. What
Is
would
that
it
you can
take?
only cash out if you have a whole Bitcoin?
No,
Is that what it is?
no. But we
No, no,
wanted,
no.
for the sake of the experiment,
Norm
for it to be
wanted to be a
idiots.
nice
Okay.
even number.
Right. I like the even number.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
just
like
wanted my $250.
a year later, so at some point someone created a Twitter account. I
Yeah,
believe you can still find.
April 6, 2014, Norm's Bitcoin, the Twitter account, was
that you,
born.
Keish?
It was not me.
Okay.
It was not
We
me.
still don't know who it is. That Bitcoin would occasionally tweet at me. We go on this wonderful journey together. Bitcoin went down. If you followed what happened to about $300, I remember at some point Newegg would take Bitcoin, and the idea was that you could, for one Bitcoin, get a PS3. PS4, maybe PS4.
Probably PS3.
For 1 Bitcoin. So it was about $300. And so Will said he wanted to cash out. We shook hands. I gave you $250.
Yeah.
I gave you
I walked out
exactly
clean.
what you got in.
Wait, so how in fact did you get your money back in the end?
Well,
Look, you got to go on this magical journey. You can't just
I
skip
kept
to the end.
the
It's
one
not
Bitcoin.
fucking
Well,
Lord of the Rings.
But you just said that you got your half back. So
I bought
paid
him
me,
out of his
he bought
Bitcoin.
me out of my investment.
oh, okay, you bought him out. All right.
I bought him out.
Even though it had gone down, it
It had gone
depreciated.
down to $300. I said, Will, I don't want you to have to take this burden. You just had a kid.
Yeah, I was flat ass
you
broke.
needed that, so
Needed
I
the diaper money.
gave you the $250. I sole possession, sole proprietor of this 1.0 Bitcoin.
I have regrets. I'll
Wait,
be
so
honest.
you bought the Bitcoin for $450.
Yeah.
How long did it take before it dropped to only 300?
Like a year.
and a half.
Okay.
It stayed around there at $300 for a long time.
Okay.
And then if you listen to this podcast,
I'm just curious, what's a Bitcoin worth
Whoa,
today?
whoa, hold on.
No.
Let's listen to
There's
the
a
journey.
conclusion to
Let's
this.
listen to the journey, right?
Okay.
And we at that point, you had left the podcast. I think Jeremy had been phased in. Jeremy was Bitcoin curious, and then
Bitcoin curious.
we rolled one with that. Years passed, passage of time.
You forgot about it, as you should with Bitcoin.
That's right.
so
I was gonna-
you just held on to it.
held on to it, let it ride.
This is like that
Will-
Big Bang Theory episode.
It's like the $1 million. You know about the $1 million pizza, right?
No.
Well,
One
Whitt-
point, a guy in like 2010 traded a Bitcoin, or a couple of Bitcoin, or 100 Bitcoin or something for a pizza to his roommate. His roommate bought the pizza with real money, and he gave him some Bitcoin
because it was worth pennies.
and then that Bitcoin ended up being worth like $1 million or $4 million
Wow.
or something. Anyway,
Will left the podcast. Will left tested. We changed offices. Kishore came on board. This noise
Seasons
has
passed.
Seasons changed. Time has passed.
Do you?
right?
And at this point, do you have you kept like the slip of paper in a safe? Is it a slip of paper? Or is
It's
it?
not. It's a code. It's a password on your computer, on your phone or computer. with
Okay,
an app.
but the thing about Bitcoin, just from what I know in popular culture, is it's
You have
like
a key.
all I remember is what's his name from Silicon Valley hunting through a garbage pile for a thumb drive that
right.
had his Bitcoin on it.
So Gunther, who's our producer now, is into crypto and can better explain it than I can. And even Jeremy can. But the idea is that your key, the thing that ties you to your account, can be in a lot of different forms. And a lot of people sell hardware, physical devices as your key to encrypt. So if someone stole that hardware device, they would need to unlock it, and then that gives you the key that gets you access to
two-factor
your account.
authentication.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. And the piece of paper you got had that key. So you want, and that's in popular media the easiest way to understand. Like, this is your bank account.
that's why you tweeted it on the internet as soon as you got that.
No,
key.
that's a different key.
Okay.
So
January
Circa-
2017.
January 2017, 3 years had since passed.
Have you kind of forgotten at this point that you even own this Bitcoin?
Or did you remember it every single day? Were you thinking, what's going on with my Bitcoin?
No,
You get up
no,
in the
no.
morning, you
We
check
were
in
on
it.
the podcast, and Bitcoin price was surging. It hit about $1,000.
In January 2017, Bitcoin was on the rise again. And to answer your question, the Bitcoin Twitter account, Norm's Bitcoin, would occasionally tweet at me. It'd be a fun thing. In my mind, at that point, 3 years later, it's like, a couple bad hands at blackjack. $400. If it's
Damn.
gone, it's gone. A couple of hours of bad hands
Yeah,
at
okay.
blackjack. But Bitcoin was on the rise, and it hit a point where it was $800. It hit and that was $900, twice the amount of money we put in. That's pretty good. After
That's a
three
good time
years.
to cash out,
you-
double your
yeah.
money.
Because it
And-
goes up and down.
Up and down, right?
Yeah.
And
then-
Norman's
It's not-
talking
it's
about
no
it
guarantees.
weekly.
And
Norm's
then
talking about it weekly on the podcast. Like, should I hold? Should I sell?
Should I stay or should I go? It becomes a regular topic of conversation again, brought up on the podcast. And in January, it hits $1,000. And I think I did this without consulting either of you.
No, we encourage you to sell.
Okay. You
It's
guys,
the right choice.
and I sold it at $1,000.
Wait, did you sell the whole thing?
One Bitcoin for $1,000?
You should have sold half, and then you have half the stake, and then everything after that is just gravy.
No, I mean, yeah, it's probably yes, of course. In
Look.
retrospect, yes. I thought I made out great.
You did.
I
You
doubled my
your
money.
Yeah.
I doubled my money.
What Will just said is a good way to think about it. Take out your original stake, and then everything else is just free money.
It's house money.
See,
Yeah.
if we had been on this podcast, Norm would have ended up much better off. Because
Yeah,
Norm,
but
what
two
did,
jokers like us were on. We're just like, sell, get out of this.
what did Bitcoin end up peaking at, Norm?
So that whole year, 2017, was a fun roller coaster.
What December was.
Because it went up from 1,000, stayed at 1,000, went to 2,000, and then December, the last 3 weeks of December, it jumped from 8,000 to 19,000.
What, $19,000?
Yep.
And so I could have made enough to, pay for a third of the Tesla.
Is that its all-time high?
All-time high.
And
Yeah.
when was that?
End of 2017.
Yeah,
A
December
year
2017.
and a half ago.
And what's a Bitcoin worth today?
Like 35 cents.
$8,000.
So even if I
$8,000.
held it to today,
Oh my God.
I would have made 8 times
If you had
more.
if you had kept half, like I told you to do,
I would have $4,000.
you'd have
right now.
$4,000 right now.
If you would have
didn't
kept half like I told you to do in the future,
Yeah. Look, I was the one who told you to buy me out of it. I told you it was a good investment to take
right.
my half at the original cost. I gave you a real deal.
Yeah. You made the big mistake.
I mean, I should
Yeah,
get $250 right now, to
you
be
don't,
honest.
You don't exactly come out of this smelling your roses either, Will, because you sold your stake.
All I was there was because Norm's ATM wouldn't let him take more than $250 out at a time.
You have FOMO.
That's the only reason I had an investment in this.
I just found the thumbnail of the video, and it's literally Will next to the ATM holding a beer in his hand. So
Yeah.
it's a validator of the story.
This is not the sort of thing that you should feel regret over. You doubled your money. Yeah, I mean, it's like that story they tell in The Social Network, the guy that sold Victoria's Secret for like $1 billion or whatever it was, but then it ended up being
25 million.
25 million, but obviously ended up being worth
$4 billion
and he jumps
company.
off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. He still had $1 million.
Yeah.
you can't.
I mean,
live
how
life
do you
dwelling on your regrets?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you don't feel any regret?
No. I mean,
No.
it's a fun thing to think about it. The what if story, but
On the
it
other
is what it
hand,
is.
I was urging him to buy in at 15,000.
So here's the other way I look at it is I had one
no
of
regrets
the
there.
Let's see, that was the year that my daughter was 1. That was maybe the last time I got day drunk in the sun and watched a building demolished. It's a priceless memory.
It comes back around. Your kids get older. You
Yeah.
get dated.
So I do have a conclusion. I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but 2 months ago I went back to Austin. We did a production. I was there with Joey.
Yeah.
And we went back to Handlebar.
Oh my goodness. Is it still there?
Burt Reynolds is still there.
Of course.
The Bitcoin ATM is not.
There's a
There is
Bitcoin.
an empty spot where the Bitcoin ATM used to be.
So what's the mall down by my house? Sermonti?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes.
There's a Bitcoin ATM there.
Oh, there's Bitcoin ATM
It
like
takes
down the
credit cards.
street.
Yeah.
Like they're
They're
everywhere.
everywhere.
They're
Yeah.
everywhere now.
That one was big and obviously made by hand.
People still got to buy drugs somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
that was a good memory from this podcast.
Yeah, I remember following those adventures. I didn't know anything about like how much it had gone up after the fact. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But again, you don't know, do you? I mean, even if you sold, in retrospect, it's easy to say I should have sold it at its high. It's easy to say that after the fact. You don't know what the high is going to
But
be.
when it goes from 4,000 to 19,000, you're going to think, oh, it's going to keep going up. Why would I sell it now? I'd be a fool.
You sell it at 19,000, then maybe it doubles up again, and then
Yeah.
you worry about that money lost.
that's
I mean,
right.
it's a no-win scenario.
All right, we've gone deep. Let's bounce back up.
Okay.
Before we continue with the conversation, I want to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Pedal. When I was young, getting a credit card was impossible because I didn't have a credit history. Now I've built some credit, but I'm still getting dinged with late payment fees and annual fees and high interest rates. But have you ever heard of a credit card company that actually helps you avoid paying those fees and unexpected interest charges? Well, I just did, and it completely changed the way I think about credit cards. This new company is called Pedal. Pedal uses advanced technology and partners with WebBank member FDIC to provide access to a Visa credit card along with a simple, modern mobile app. Pedal's cashback grows with you. Earn 1% cashback right away and up to 1.5% cashback when you make 12 on-time payments. When Pedal says no fees, they mean it. No annual fees, late payment fees, foreign transaction fees, or any other kind of fees. Pedal suggests you pay in full each month so you avoid interest charges entirely. You can also set up autopay so you never forget to make a payment. As of today, their variable APRs range from 15.24% to 26.24%. It's about time a credit card helped you succeed financially. Check out the Pedal credit card. It's a smarter credit card for the modern world. Go to pedalcard.com/test today to find out more. That's Pedal with a T. Pedal. PETAL card.com/test. Once again, Pedal, PETAL card.com/test. You know, Jeremy, I was secretly hoping that you would play the Inception music. Because there you go. Thank you. Thank you.
really loud.
That was a thing that we used to do on this podcast.
We used to
as
do
well,
that a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Where
it's a
if
bit.
we would go on tangents, and the Bitcoin ATM store was an old style, a tangent, and we would bounce back up. And I looked it up. The reason we did that was because Inception also came out in 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
was very
sound was very
topical.
much in the zeitgeist at the time.
Very much.
If you think about,
And it's not even in the movie; it's just from the trailer.
Oh,
really,
it's in the movie.
Is it?
yeah,
It has to be in the movie.
yeah, it's when they play. That's the Edith Piaf song "Sped Way Up" or
Slowed Way
Down. Yeah,
Yes.
Really?
yeah. If you want to think about moments of the podcast, the moment that I discovered you could buy a piece of soundboard software for like $30, that was pretty much a turning point for us. Because that's when we had the ability to dump all that stuff in and me not have to do it in post.
You know, we recorded an episode of this podcast in France once.
What,
Me,
really?
You, and Joey, Norm, like outside of CERN. We were on a back patio of an Airbnb.
Was that for This Is Only a
Yeah,
Test?
it was.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the furthest this podcast has gone.
We recorded.
Didn't Simone join you for that somehow?
She was there at CERN with us, but not for the podcast.
Got it.
Yeah.
Did we record at Comic-Con one year too?
Probably.
That seems right.
I mean, if we had to. There were only so many of us.
Yeah.
We were all at Comic-Con that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
So pop culture, we didn't start introducing pop culture as a segment, I think, until Jeremy, you and Kishore joined the show. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, we never talked about pop culture
Yeah,
before.
we were
before
more-
Jeremy
we were
and
more
Kishore were
tech.
on the show. 100%
Well, it would have
true.
been deep into the Adam Savage era, right?
Yes.
Because he brought that with him.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
we completely didn't care about that stuff before that.
landscape of pop culture has changed. Let me throw out some highlights from 2010.
Okay.
Things that happened in 2010. Top movies of that year were Inception,
Yeah.
Toy Story 3, and The
yeah.
Social Network. All three of those movies that I think had big influences on the things we were talking about and covering, from our love for Inception to our love for Toy Story 3.
I mean, but-
9 years later, Toy Story 4 is coming out this year.
Finally.
And are we even talking about Facebook anymore in
I
2019?
mean, it's not really relevant. It's
No.
kind of
See?
Friendster.
Your
to-
analogy breaks down.
That was also the year Spider-Man debuted on Broadway.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
my God.
I went and saw that
Really?
on Broadway, and the last year I was there. Wes and I went on one of our trips to New York Maker Fair on one of our off
Oh, the
nights.
year that I went when the year that my daughter was sick and I didn't go is when you went to that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. There was the finale for a big show, large number of fans.
Lost.
Controversial finale.
Yeah.
So all things coming back with finale of Game of Thrones
Yeah.
this year. We had Conan O'Brien's NBC. Big.
Well, so the Conan O'Brien NBC thing was one of the big inspirations when we started Tested. Like if
Him
you
doing
think-
his own thing.
No, him coming out and saying, "Don't be cynical." Like this seems like a bad beat. Yada yada. It's not the way I would have wanted this to happen. It's not the way any of us wanted this to happen. But don't be cynical. And that was the thing. That would like not being cynical. That and the Louis C.K. bit, which he's doing okay, right?
Right.
The thing about we live in an age. His bit about living in an age of miracles. That I'm sitting in a chair in the sky, and I'm complaining that the internet's slow. Like those were the two of the early guiding lights. That hey, these phones are amazing inventions. Like my iPhone 4 was literally as fast, higher resolution, had a better internet connection than my PC did 9 years before, and that's a thing to be celebrate and not to be cynical about. So anyway, sorry.
And then also in movie news, it was also the big rise of 3D movies because Avatar had come out just the year before.
And 3D TVs, I imagine.
And that's
TV
right.
Quest.
We
God, do you
did a
remember
TV
going to buy
Quest.
those fucking 3D TVs? What a waste of money
All
those turned
three of
out
us
to be.
bought Panasonic.
Yeah.
No, you bought a Samsung.
That's right. I did buy a Samsung.
Yeah,
you
you had to
guys
be
bought
different.
Panasonic plasma TVs.
You couldn't
3D
not
TVs.
buy a 3D TV for a while.
Yeah,
It's like
if you bought a
HDTV
nice
now.
TV, it had
Yeah.
to be a 3D TV.
Yeah, talk about tech that did not last. Marvel movies, Iron Man 2
TVs were good though.
came out. What's that?
The TVs were nice.
The TVs were nice.
Yeah.
Having that big
They're good
65
TVs, just the 3D
Yeah, the
portion of it
3D.
was a waste of time.
I mean, you had to
3D.
buy, they were very expensive glasses.
$100 each. Yeah.
$100 glasses, shutter glasses
Yeah.
for these TVs.
Yeah.
Not even the polarized ones. Those just didn't come out till a couple years later.
No.
And people would sit on them and they break.
Oh,
I remember
like
those stories too.
my memory of the shutter glasses is that literally every time I went to put them on, like when I got Tron Legacy and I wanted to watch Tron Legacy in 3D, the batteries were dead, and it was some screwball weird 2032 battery that nobody ever had. And so, like, it was always like I got to go to the drugstore and get some batteries if we want to watch this movie.
The big thing is, of course, Marvel Cinematic Universe was just in its infancy. In 2010, Iron Man 2 was, I believe, technically the third movie if you count Incredible Hulk.
You have to
between
count
Iron Man-
Incredible Hulk.
You do, but it was a Universal movie, right? It wasn't
Still had Marvel.
Still
at the beginning.
MCU. It's got Tony Stark in it. How much more MCU
That was
do you want?
groundbreaking, right? The stinger at the end of Incredible Hulk was Thunderbolt Ross meeting Tony Stark, and that was not only a crossing of characters and shared universe, but also of studios.
And that
too.
William Hurt character continued to be a big player in the rest of the MCU.
That's right. So this day,
In the
it's
last
absolutely an MCU film.
Yeah.
2 years before the first Avengers film, and 9 years later, we have Endgame, of course. How many times have you seen Endgame now, Kishore?
5.
5 times.
I've only seen it once. I feel like a failure.
I've only seen it once, but I do want to see it again.
Yeah.
I saw it again last night.
I recommend it just to see it in different formats, because I've seen it in IMAX and I've seen it in 3D, and then I saw it in D-Box, which was actually pretty great.
D-Box was good?
Yeah, D-Box
I love
was
D-Box.
good. D-Box is a lot better than I think people give it credit
D-Box
for.
is super dope. Yeah.
Does it have smells?
No.
No.
Oh.
It just
What kind of
shakes.
smells do you want from a movie?
There's the thing like Sensovision or something.
Fast and Furious 9 is what you should go see or Hobbs and Shaw is what you should go see in D-Box.
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect for that.
Remember how excited we got when the Star Wars Blu-rays were announced at CES that year?
At the Panasonic booth
Yeah, you had
as
to have
well.
a Panasonic TV to get the Star Wars Blu-rays.
Yeah, these are still the
shitty
original
redos.
trilogy, the reboots,
Yeah.
or the special editions.
Special editions.
That's right.
Still
And,
no.
Star Wars was kind of in a dark era, a new dark era in 2010, right? The prequels had come out.
Yeah, it was dormant at that point.
And it wasn't exactly the dark ages that you guys
Some of the
experienced.
cartoons were out, though, right?
I mean, there were little things
Rebels
going
and
on. There
Clone
was
Wars
just
and stuff,
nothing
yeah.
going on theatrically.
It was before the Disney acquisition.
Yeah.
So they had
Yeah.
not announced episode 7. I remember they announced episode 7. We were in our Brandon Street office, and it was a big deal. Almost as big a deal as when we saw that Oculus or Facebook had bought Oculus. Those are kind of like big groundbreaking things.
I remember when they announced that when you announced or Disney announced that you were writing what became Rogue One. Nobody knew what that story was. We just knew it was going to be an anthology story set.
Yeah,
in Star
it
Wars.
was just announced as the first. There was no title at that point. Obviously, we knew what it was. We knew what the story was, but that was not announced. I believe if you go back and look at when they first did that press release, it just said it announced me and Gareth as the writer and director of the first Star Wars standalone film.
Yeah.
When it was announced, like what the movie was about, I don't remember when that happened.
Norm and I spent a really significant amount of time around that, trying to ask you questions about
Every day
Boba
at
Fett
lunch.
and Chewbacca and
Every
stuff
week,
like that.
every
to
week we'd
to suss it out, and you were
No,
very good about
I
keeping
had to
that
say,
secret.
yeah, I took that very seriously.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the most we ever got was one lunch where we threw out 1,000 different, or not, hundreds of different options. and
Chewbacca
you said,
romance.
some of you said one of the things you said might be true or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the most non-answer of non-answers. We love Star Wars on the show. We all love Star Wars. You of course worked on Star Wars in many capacities. We love the Marvel stuff, but I don't think there's any franchise that we have more of a shared love for than Star Trek.
Oh man, can we talk about the time that you guys did the list of 10 Trek episodes, and we went to your
that was
house and
another. That
watched
was
them?
another fun thing. Remember when we did the Star Trek watch-a-thon?
Next Generation Marathon.
Oh,
Where
we have kept that spirit alive because we Star Trek explain Jeremy pretty much every week.
Wait, what is this marathon you did?
Oh,
so,
it was so good.
We had a big we decided for some reason, I don't remember what it was, to do a Star Trek marathon.
I think it was because
We talked about it on the podcast.
we talked on the podcast. 2, we just bought those TVs. Right. I
Right,
had just
yeah.
bought that big Samsung TV, and we wanted to watch something on
You
it.
just moved into your house too.
I just moved in my house. 3, on the horizon, Star Trek Next Generation, the remaster was starting to formulate. So we're talking about what it would be like to watch Next Generation in HD.
And it was fantastic.
And of course,
It was
it ended
very
up being
good, yeah.
fantastic. And Brad Shoemaker was a big Next Generation fan. This is the thing. Everyone loves talking about how big of a Star Trek fan they are. We love discovering that we're all Star Trek fans. Because
Yeah, you couldn't throw a rock in that office without hitting 3 or 4 Star Trek fans.
And so we knew we wanted to do I think we had Justin TV live streaming. We wanted to do a watch along with people.
Oh my God, it was just in TV still
Justin
back then.
TV.
Holy
Yeah.
shit!
Right.
Because you could put non-game stuff on Twitch back then.
Right.
And we got into the boardroom at the old Whiskey Media office and spent an afternoon saying, if we had one day to marathon Next Generation, what would be
What would be the top 10 episodes
10
or whatever?
12 episodes?
And that was a pretty heated discussion.
It was
as
a
I
good
recall.
list.
So you
Because it wasn't just about picking 10 favorites. It was also picking 10 that as a whole would create the best marathon, the best sampling.
It's like
of
being
Trek.
a DJ, a Trek
Do you
DJ.
remember any of the ones you put on
Oh
the
yeah, it
list?
was Darmok,
Measure of a Man. Like it would have been. It would have been like
Inner Light,
obvious
Inner Light, of course.
classics.
Best of both
Best
worlds.
But then everyone's.
Both or just part 2?
I
I think you have to do. I think you have to do both. But I think we counted it as one. I can't remember.
Yeah, we cheated on some.
But
you live stream this?
Lower
We
Decks.
live streamed that.
They did Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is great.
and people could queue up their episodes at home and kind of like watch it along with us and get like a live commentary.
So you didn't stream the video of the show?
No,
the
because
video is facing
obviously
us.
there'd be a copyright issue with that.
Yeah, it's just on TV.
Yeah,
and
so
maybe
like Norm's laptop was on his like living room set. Hey,
There was, as I recall, I don't know if it was 10 or however many episodes it was, but whatever it was, I remember there was certain ones that were shoo-ins that, like, again, in any conversation about Star Trek, there's certain episodes that no one's going to complain about. Inner Light, Measure of a Man, stuff like that. But Best of Both
the one where
Worlds.
Data has sex.
Whichever one that is.
Yeah.
That's early.
So, but then there was everyone's got like their own personal favorites that aren't necessarily everyone else's favorites, and like filling out the rest of them. That's where it got heated.
Well, but at the same time, you guys tried to make a list that was representative of all of the different kinds of Trek episodes, because there's like the Inside Picard's Head episodes, and there's the one person has a spiritual journey, and there's a threat takes over the whole ship, and one crew member has to solve it. Because the one where Beverly's stuck in the capsule universe was one of them. I can't remember which one that is.
Oh, I love that episode.
that is a good episode. Where the universe keeps getting smaller
and smaller,
Yeah.
until finally it's just like the bridge and her, and she's like, "Oh shit, I figured it out at the last possible minute."
Yeah, that was a good. I can't remember what it's called, but that is a good episode.
TNG wasn't as serialized as some of the follow-up shows as DS9 ended up being, so it was easier to pick out. But there were still through lines, right? Where Picard was at the beginning of the show, how they really wrote him as a character who hated kids and had Wesley as a counterpoint to that.
He was pissed at the beginning that there were kids on the ship.
Oh yeah, Picard's Captain's Day. You remember that? Well, they would all draw pictures of Picard and.
Oh yeah, because like my favorite Star Trek episode personally is Disaster, and that's the one where
The one with his heart.
no, that's the one where the Enterprise hits like a rare.
The quantum
It hits
fragment.
the quantum filament.
Yeah, filament,
which is
yeah.
like this really dangerous thing that they can't detect, and it's just like they just have a really bad accident. And it's the one. There's various different stories where people around the Enterprise are trapped in various situations. It's the one where Worf has to delivers Keiko's baby. Beverly and Geordi are stuck in the cargo hold, and they have to depressurize the bay. But the most fun part of it is Picard stuck in the turbo lift with the kids that won the science contest.
Yes.
And they have to, and they all have to survive together. That's a sweet episode.
Well, there's also like the ones where they turn into kids. Rascals.
Not
not
my
one of my
favorite.
favorites.
Guinan as a kid. I think Starship Mine was a favorite.
Starship, my Die Hard on the Enterprise, which is a favorite for sure.
Which one? Starship Mine is the one where what's his name takes over? Harvey Mudd.
No.
No,
it's the one
Starship
that-
Mine is the Enterprise is in dry dock, and it's every 10 years or whatever
right.
it is.
The
they
baryon
have
sweep.
The baryon sweep. They have to clean out all like the residual warp particles or whatever. And there's a cleanup crew, which is actually like basically Star Trek Hans Gruber and a bunch of guys that they're not trying to steal the Enterprise. They're trying to steal something off of the Enterprise.
Dilithium residue or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Picard no one's supposed to be on the ship, but Picard goes back for his riding saddle because he's going to go riding,
Of course.
while they're on shore leave, and he ends up basically being John McClane and taking all these motherfuckers out. It's a great episode.
He pretends to be the barber.
That's right.
Oh,
Right?
Mott.
He put
Mott,
the
that's
barber.
right, I'm
The
Mott.
barber. Yeah.
Really fun episode.
One of the best parts of doing that marathon, and we had talked about for this episode, just doing this, what we're doing right now, recounting our favorite Star Trek episodes. But I don't think Phantasms was on the list to watch.
Which
but
one's
I believe
Phantasms.
Where
That's-
the three ghosts take over Troy, Data, and
Oh,
O'Brien.
right.
we had cellular peptide cake at the marathon.
Yeah, Leah, my lovely wife, made a cellular peptide cake for that marathon.
What did it look like?
It looked like it did on the show.
exactly-
It looked
She
like
did a really good
it looked
job.
like
The uniform of Deanna Troi.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had a color printout of her head that we put at the top of it, and then
It
during
was. I mean,
lunch
it wasn't
break,
far off the one on the show. It was really
Yeah.
good. Really
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
Good peptide cake.
I would do that again. I would do the marathon again, but I think it would have to be.
I wouldn't mind doing it for DS9 because
For
I didn't watch
DS9.
all of DS9.
Oh,
Neither
DS9.
did I.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah, I would watch the 10 best episodes of DS9.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Let's do some technology.
What music do you want now?
Let's play some technology music. I think
God.
we got our fill of pop culture. All right, in 2010, and there's a bunch of technical. We're not going to talk about
The year we made
new
contact.
news, but in 2010, we mentioned iPad came out.
iPhone 4.
The iPhone 4 was lost at a bar and recovered.
Was that the first phone with FaceTime?
Yes.
4S was FaceTime?
4 had FaceTime. 4S was Siri.
Siri.
They might not have added FaceTime but 4 supported FaceTime.
It's still, I think, my favorite form factor they've ever had for the iPhone. I mean, I know we all like our bigger screens now, but in terms of just the industrial design of it, the 4 is still my favorite.
The 5.
The glass in the
tall,
front and the
skinny
back
one.
and the metal band.
Just the metal
It's
band
very
around it. It just
like
felt,
a
it just felt
camera.
really cool.
Yeah.
The holding, that was when the ridiculous Steve Jobs, you have to hold the phone right way thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
Antenna Gate was a big deal because of that.
Right. And that also was born out of, at that time, people making their own content on social media and YouTube, because it wasn't until people put out their own videos bitched about it in a way that was shared around. Like, that would have never happened 3 years prior.
Yeah.
People would have just written angry emails.
Like, if you think about the thing that was important about the 4, though, the important thing was it was the first phone I ever had that had a decent camera. And that's laughable by this in this 2019, but back then you could take real photos
and
with
video.
that thing. Yeah, and video. And it was HD. Mm-hmm. It was nice.
2010 was also the year the Xbox 360 Connect was released.
Well, that really made a lasting impact on the gaming world, didn't it?
But
Just
in that moment,
shook the earth.
in that moment, didn't you think it was going to?
No.
No.
Did you ever listen? You didn't listen to the podcast.
No, I don't remember those.
The interesting thing is the technology in that thing has become really important to like stuff that I do now. But yeah,
I was going to say, like,
great.
the thing that was amazing about that was the videos that showed how it worked. When you saw IR cameras that would show the room full of dots that the human eye
It's an
couldn't
impressive
see.
piece of technology, and some of the stuff outside of gaming that like hackers and homebrew people did with it was really impressive.
Yeah.
But like as a piece of gaming hardware is one of the spectacular failures of the last decade.
So there were a few things that were really cool. Like that Double Fine mini game thing was good. Gunstringer was
Dance
good.
Central was fun.
Dance Central was great. Yeah.
I just remember being at a party that had a bunch of kids. It was like a family thing. It was like a kid's birthday party or something, and they were playing a game with Kinect. And I just remember, like, after 5 minutes, the kids asking if they could have controllers because they were just bored with it. They wanted to play something that actually felt like a video game.
Well, prior to 2006 is when the Wii came out, and the Wii really changed console landscape in terms of how people played together. Families played together.
That might be the last thing I ever camped out overnight for. Was the
That's not
original
true.
Wii?
Was the first Wii?
You and I camped out for every iPhone until they started letting you mail order them.
Not overnight.
Okay, well, we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and went down.
I went down to the Best Buy in Marin. Me and Bill Roper. We camped out all night to get a Wii.
I walked.
And to be, even though the Wii was not a great console, it actually, for people, if you wanted a Wii, it ended up being a smart play because if you remember,
impossible.
you couldn't get one for months.
Years.
That's why when you called me when the Wii U came out and we're like, hey, there was Wii U's at Target, you should come down and get one. I was like, is there a line? You're like, no, it's no problem.
And
like, I'm going to
Kinect,
come get one.
I think, was a way for Microsoft to try to get in on that family play together.
Motion gaming, yeah.
Motion gaming, a little bit different, but obviously didn't work out. 2010 was also the year the 3DS was announced. So DS
announced?
Lite came out in 2011. So DS Lite, hugely successful, all the Pokemon variants, and 3DS was one of those weird Nintendo novelty features. Right, same form factor as DS, but would a 3D screen actually enhance the play of this? But it was also a more powerful portable.
What was that? It actually had 3D capabilities that were worth anything.
Yeah.
It's interesting how many things kind of had their beginning and end over the course of the last 10 years. Like the MCU, but like it was just getting started. Now, obviously, the MCU is going to continue, but Endgame felt like a specific an endpoint for everything they had built.
Yep.
Game of Thrones,
2011
kind of
to
began and end over the course of that decade. 3DS, like you said, obviously 3DS is pretty much done now. 3DS is finished, but it had a spectacularly successful decade.
I mean, the other interesting thing is like the iPhone 4 is the first one that had a gyroscope accelerometer, like an IMU in the modern context. And without that stuff, we wouldn't have VR today. Like because those chips became available and were accurate, and they could put 3 or 4 of them on the headsets and in the controllers and stuff like that. Like that's why VR works now.
It was exciting back in 2010 because it was the beginning of the ramp up for mobile hardware. iPhone in 2007, you had the first Android devices. Nexus 1 was Google's first serious, their own design phone in 2010, and that has now become the Pixel, right? The Nexus is done, essentially.
The Nexus 4 was, I think, the pinnacle of that line. I love that phone.
The budget one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good phone.
Yeah, and they would switch between manufacturers, and then once they ended up on Samsung, they kind of just went with Samsung for a while before they switched over to LG.
Well, and Android has come of age during that time. Like the iOS was good and usable from the time they added the App Store. Really, was what became iOS 2. But
do you remember all the phone startups, right?
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft did Windows Mobile.
Yeah, that was late though.
Palm. They had a version of the Pocket PC Windows Mobile along with the iPhone.
Yeah.
And then they revamped it.
Yeah.
Right when Zune came out, when Jay Allard was running that business, and they had the Kin.
I remember the King.
Oh, I have one of those still.
They
sent us
lasted about
those, but
5 minutes.
They didn't even sell them. I don't think. I think they just sent out review kits and then they were dead.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the year of like the sliding keyboards too?
Yeah,
Like
were-
the Sidekick and all of that kind of stuff.
For a while, you could get Android phones. T-Mobile always had an Android phone that was like a Sidekick style that had like a slide out hardware keyboard.
Palm rose and fall in
Yeah.
that time.
HP
Or
bought Palm.
Palm OS was a big thing. If you look back at the original Palm, it was a slide-out keyboard on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and their whole novel interface was a capacitive touchscreen with cards.
The cards, yeah.
Which we use now on
iOS.
Everything.
all
Yeah.
the time. It is the new way with touchscreens and multitasking.
Well, and they had multitasking before anybody, but like that worked well before anybody else on a tablet, especially. And then HP bought them, and it seemed like
And
they were going to
released their
invest
tablet.
heavily.
Remember the
Yeah.
big HP tablet?
Oh,
the
yeah.
big iPad competitor, 9.7 inch?
Yeah.
WebOS went nowhere. WebOS
Oh,
still
yeah, I
has-
remember that.
Yeah.
People bought a ton of those.
What was there was the other tablet company that came out with that brick of a tablet.
BlackBerry did one.
That was on BlackBerry.
Yeah, RIM,
The BlackBerry tablet.
the 7-inch one, which was the same basic hardware as the early Kindle tablet, as I recall. The Kindle went from being like a
Playbook. Sorry, that was
$400
the BlackBerry Playbook.
The Kindle went from being a thing that was like a $400 extreme luxury item to a thing that you can buy for what, $79 now.
And it's totally like if it falls on the floor, you're like, okay.
It launched at a high price point?
The first white one, when I reviewed that at Maximum PC, was $400, I think, $359.
That's the other thing. Going from BlackBerry to Kindle, we saw the rise of Kindle, Fire, the Fire line of devices, and the commoditization of all these tablet devices.
Well, the attempted phone.
Well, I mean, Amazon did the thing that we assumed that Apple was going to do with the App Store, where they said, look, we know that a certain number of people buy this many apps when they buy a tablet, so we're going to just say the tablet's $99 and we'll make up the rest of the money on this hardware on the app sales and music
And
sales
ads.
and media and Prime and all the other stuff that Amazon extracts money with. Prime happened over that time too, didn't it?
Actually, I don't know when Prime launched.
I feel like Amazon. I feel like at some point we were like 2-day shipping. Hell yeah, that sounds great. That might have been a Maximum PC though.
With the Kindle stuff, I remember the first year the Kindle hit $100, and it was only $100 if you turned on the ads. That means if you turn on the Kindle, it was the first real small one that was almost like a Star Trek pad, and that was gonna be super cheap. Everyone was gonna have one, and now you wouldn't pay $100 for a Kindle. You pay like $50 for a Kindle.
I pay for the nice Kindle now.
You still, I mean, they're still making.
I'm still
new
using
ones.
the Voyager that's like 4 years old though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
2012 is what I'm thinking about, is when they added the video service.
So also in that time with iPhone 4S, we had Siri, which was the first of the intelligent assistant devices. I remember talking on this podcast because they had acquired Siri from another company.
Yeah.
It was just an app you could download, and they didn't
Right.
even change the name.
It was Siri, right? We were wondering what they would call it, and it was the 4S. The S stood for Siri, like 3GS. S stood
Super.
for
That's
speed.
for super, Norm.
Super? No, Siri.
For super.
No, for Siri. Anyway, I remember saying that this was a program where people would have low tolerance for failure.
You were right.
And people did have low
Yeah.
tolerance for failure because the expectation with these, and they've gotten better now.
Siri still sucks compared to what
Siri,
else is
sure,
out
but
there.
what Google has done, like in voice assistants
Yeah.
in general, with their big databases, with the training, it is pretty reliable in a bunch of languages.
I
But
remember
those ads. You remember the first Siri ads? Zoe Deschanel asking whether it was raining outside.
when there was a window right behind her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. People walking on the doing that run in San Francisco and using the Siri.
I just remember. I remember the first time they added the Hey Siri stuff, and people. Oh, there you go. Thanks, phone.
Cancel.
People would get pissed because we would make their phones trigger.
Yeah.
And then it became a fun thing that we could just do for fun.
Wow.
And then now
Fun.
it doesn't work anymore because they voice recognize everything now.
I remember,
Sad.
Gary, you and Will were two of the first people who bought Alexas, who bought Amazon Echoes.
I don't remember exactly when we got ours, but it
was a preview
We still
program.
have it. We have it in the kitchen. We use it all the time. And we really just ask it to. We don't use it for that many things. We use it to occasionally. Our kid asks it a lot of questions, and we get the weather from it. We don't really use it. It's a Gen 1. We don't really use it for all that much stuff.
We use it for timers.
And it will occasionally butt into conversations uninvited. You know, it thinks you've triggered it, but you didn't intend to. And it's like, what even? Sometimes you go like, what even started that off? Like, what did it respond to? There, we're trying to figure out like what you just said.
It's anything with an XA sound at the
I
end.
guess.
Did you guys know? Sorry to jump ahead to 2019 here, but they did recently reveal that there's a crew of hundreds of Amazon employees that actually listen to your requests when there's a weird, a question that it doesn't understand.
Oh.
And then the people will at the computer, they will sort of, translate it into English or whatever you've spoken.
When I say Alexa, fuck off.
Yeah.
Because she gets it wrong.
And she doesn't know what you mean. Like there's somebody who actually reads that or hears it and
That's
then
nice.
converts it. Are you guys cool with that? With people listening?
Look, I assume that the whole thing is being broadcast to the web the entire time.
That's pretty much how I feel.
I remember on that first Oktobercast, Gary, you had your phone delivered to our office.
Yeah, I
Your
remember
4S.
the shipment came live.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be at the podcast that day.
Yeah.
What phone?
The 4S.
I think it was a 4S.
was the first one with Siri.
Oh yeah, I remember you FaceTimed me. I don't know if that was the 4S or the 4, but it was live on the show.
Because you were the only person we knew that had another 4S,
Yeah.
probably. Maybe the 4S was the FaceTime one. I don't think it matters.
FaceTime has been a good thing. I use
I
that
did-
all the time.
I didn't get it until I had a kid.
Well, that's.
I remember saying I thought it was dumb.
Oh, you didn't get it.
I didn't get it until both my parents had. By the time my kid was born, my parents both had phones and iPads that would work with it, and it ended up being, since they live on the other side of the country, it's like the way she has interacted with my parents the most.
Yep.
Yeah. Whenever I travel, I always try to FaceTime home and talk to my kid.
And now that data's cheap enough, like we were at dinner a few weeks ago, and I walked outside and stood on the street in Valencia while we were eating dinner, and got to talk to my daughter. It was really nice.
I mean, speaking of data, when we started the podcast, we were barely on 3G. Right, we were
3G had been out for a while, right? A year or
3G
two.
It does make
ago.
you wonder, going back to the original iPhone, which I had,
me too.
that was just on the Edge network. It makes you wonder how we ever tolerated that.
Well, it was mostly a Wi-Fi device for me. Like I used it when I was at the office or at home.
Are you kidding? I loved that device. Like I never regretted that purchase. And like you, I probably bought it at whatever it launched at before,
$7.99.
and then they dropped the price $200.
I bought it when they released the 32 gig version, so I could put more music on it.
I hung up from doing the Max PC podcast, and I said, "Gotta go to get in a cab."
Oh, because you're in Chicago. So.
I have an appointment to get downtown and get a phone.
Wow.
Yeah, I got mine day one as
AT&T
well.
store.
And you're right.
With Apple.
With Wi-Fi, you don't notice it, but it's a phone, right? You're supposed to be using it as you're walking around out in the world. And any time now, when your phone drops back to like 1x, you basically just assume, well, the phone's unusable right now. But that's that used to be what we had all the time.
Yeah.
1X is
Yeah.
Edge, yeah.
But
Is 1X really Edge? I didn't know that.
It's not. It's
I thought 1X was GPRS or something.
Oh,
or
well,
equivalent,
it's super slow.
just multi-touch and a big screen. That just using it was nice.
I remember jailbreaking that first iPhone and
Yeah.
loading up.
Tap revolution.
Oh, God, so much good stuff. Yeah.
That's not really a thing anymore, is it? Jailbreaking.
People do it still, but it's mostly for unlocking for international, like getting it off your carrier
I found
and
the
piracy.
first time you did the favorite things list, which was 2012. And Norm's favorite things that year was 4G LTE,
Hell yeah.
SanDisk memory cards that were super fast at the time, a 16 gig memory card. Norm still talks about memory cards pretty much every week. Airbnb and Uber are on the list.
Wow.
Touchscreen laptops and the Nexus 7. Oh, and a standing desk. Which
Hey.
you still use.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
So the Airbnb, that was the year we went to World Maker Faire in New York for the first time, and we looked at again on our budget, and we're like, well, we could go for like 2 days and stay in hotels, or we could rent a dope house on the Upper West Side and stay there for a week and do a bunch of other New York stuff. And we went and shot videos all week and met a bunch of really interesting people and went to like NYC Resistor and a bunch of other, I can't remember which videos we did, but anyway, we did a bunch of cool videos that week, and got to pretend we were New Yorkers for 5 or 6 days. It was really cool.
Will's list is a little bit more indicative of his descent into old manness.
I had a sweater on there, I think, right?
My old man sweaters and wool socks are on your favorite things of the year. It's still probably.
Those smart wool socks are astounding. Really, really good socks. Mountaineer. You should get some of those, Gary. We've talked about them.
They sound good, yeah.
The only one on
cozy,
here that
cozy,
hasn't
cozy.
held up is the TiVo stream.
The TiVo stream, right up until the moment that I switched to Hulu TV and just it works everywhere, was used every day in our house because it would let us watch TV on the iPad or in the bedroom where the TiVo wasn't hooked up.
Everything else on here is pretty much held up. A liquid nitrogen doer, too.
That thing I use twice, but I use it anytime I make ice cream, so 2 or 3 times a year.
What else? Technology? Are we done with technology?
I mean, what was the bit? We spent most of the first 3 years of this podcast talking about streaming TV and cutting cable, and then it finally just kind of quietly happened like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I cut the cable about a year ago, and I've never looked back. Got Sonic internet in the house, gig internet, which is fantastic, $40 a month.
I mean, that's how technology works, right? All the things that we were excited about and wanted to dive deep into, and where there are tons of little companies popping up in that space, become the new normal. From phones, like it's not exciting really to talk about some of these new phones now because things really haven't changed that much. To things like streaming and even a lot of those emerging technologies, some of them just died off, right? And that was the thing that we try to do with this podcast is find out what was the next thing. We'd find those things at CES.
Well, that's why we looked at 3D printers and VR and drones when those things were brand new.
Yep. And some of those things are very mature now as businesses, and we're not seeing a ton of new drones out every year, a ton of new 3D printers every year. Tech's still interesting, but what we're all also looking at, what the next thing is.
Well, it's the thing that I didn't realize until after I left. Actually, is that the thing that I've always been excited about is always the thing that's like so new that you don't kind of know where the edges of it are. Even the people who are making it maybe don't know what it's going to be used for. Like if you talk to Chris Anderson when he started 3D robotics and started making drones, or the folks at DJI, like they didn't know what people were going to use $1,000 drones for. They just knew that if they built $1,000 drones, people would figure out cool stuff to do with them. And now they do like site surveys for construction and oil field maintenance, and it's bananas. It's really cool.
It's also fun just as consumers because the technology advances so rapidly.
Yeah.
Every single year, the next iteration is substantially better.
Well, and like if you think about the difference between the first iPad and the second iPad, it's really clear that as soon as Apple had those things out in the world and like were collecting data on what people were actually using them for, they had made some really weird assumptions about how people were going to use the OS, and they were able to adjust it even by like the September update to iOS, and that's to me that's the most exciting time for any new technology.
Alrighty. Before we move on to our next segment, I wanted you to know that This Is Only a Test this week is also made possible by Netgear. You upgrade your smartphone, TV, and laptop, but when's the last time you upgraded your home Wi-Fi? The future of Wi-Fi is here, and it's time to welcome Wi-Fi 6. The Netgear Nighthawk Wi-Fi 6 router gives you ultra-fast speeds and wider coverage throughout your home. It's the biggest revolution in Wi-Fi ever. You get 4 times the capacity compared to today's Wi-Fi, which means you can connect more devices and stream simultaneously without impacting Wi-Fi speed and reliability. The devices of today and tomorrow demand more. Your old Wi-Fi is timing out, and you need the latest in high-performance Wi-Fi that can keep up with you and your entire family. If you stream shows on services like Netflix or Hulu, the newest line of high-performing routers from Netgear will eliminate the buffering and let you stream smoothly, even in 4K, giving your streaming the VIP treatment. And if you game, lag will be a thing of the past. Turn your Wi-Fi up to 6 with a Nighthawk Wi-Fi 6 router. Check it out today at netgear.com/Wi-Fi 6. Again, that's netgear.com/Wi-Fi and the number 6.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Speaking of technology that has grown and matured over the lifespan of this podcast so far, 2010 was also when the Oculus Rift was really introduced to the world.
What? Oh, that was 2010?
No, dude, it can't be right.
It had to be 2011.
2011 was, I think, the Kickstarter, but 2010 was on the forums when...
Well, nobody knew about that then because there's some crazy guy posted on the forums. It was 2011 when he took it to E3, and Brad saw it at the Bethesda booth with Doom.
Doom was in Doom in 2012, but in the forums, work started. It's when he started chatting with John Carmack in the forums, and from 2012, that's when the Kickstarter started.
Right.
And it shipped in 2013.
Right. Pretty early in 2013, like March or so.
I think, Jeremy, you were the first one.
I was back at number 109.
Wow.
Yeah, you actually brought me on the show. I actually watched that again just to sort of in prep for the releases this week, just to like be nostalgic for a minute.
You brought the DK1.
You got it on day one, the first day that
because I ordered one of the like the assemble your own kits, right? Which got jettisoned as soon as they had a huge successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So I just got a standard box kit, but it was one of the first shipped, and so I brought it in, and you introduced me as like, I don't know, a fellow friend, like a friend of yours.
Friend of the site.
Yeah, friend of the show. And I brought it on, and then we ended up doing a podcast. That was what led to the famous photo of you.
So that was the thumbnail
for
the photo that's haunted me for the last 7 years.
Exactly.
With that, I'm just curious about, because that photo obviously has taken on mythic proportions.
Have I seen a cent of revenue and royalties? No,
because you took the photo.
No. My question was going to be: would that kind of like O face that you were doing? Was that a genuine reaction, or was that staged?
It was, of course, it was staged.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I remember the first time I put on a DK1, I was pretty.
I mean,
amazed.
that was the reaction I had when I put it on and used it the first time.
No, we all loved it, but that was a photo.
Okay.
We tested out on the podcast set in our old office. Our set was this L-shaped table that we did our second October cast in, and we had a TV that had a mirror from the PC. So you were using it, and back then it was Team Fortress 2 was one of the first games that had support for head tracking.
Yeah.
And you would do head aiming. Oh, no, it was independent.
You could do it. You could set it. They had like 5 different modes, and we tried them all.
More than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ton of modes because they didn't know what was going to work.
And this was right after, because they had a showing at CES that year too. It's the first time I met the folks over at Oculus. They had a hotel room, met with them. That was the year you didn't go.
The first time
2013, you didn't
I didn't go
go.
because my daughter was due.
Yeah.
I saw it at PAX. I saw the ski goggle one that he brought to PAX to E3 in 2012 at PAX the year before. Steve Lynn grabbed me and was like, "Hey, you got to come check this out," and introduced me to Palmer in a like closet off to the side of the PAX escalators where the
post Kickstarter.
This would have been September of 2012.
So Kickstarter had launched.
Okay,
Kickstarter
had not shipped yet.
Yeah, and it was the ski goggle one.
Yeah.
And you couldn't wear your glasses. My glasses wouldn't fit under it, so I had to do it with no glasses, and I can't see. But I could see the smoke. Like the smoke was volumetric in Doom 3 BFG. I was like,
"There's something here."
This is well, but kind of that wasn't the moment for me for VR. Like I was like, this is really cool, right? It's like a really cool way to play games. But it wasn't until I saw the hands with the Vive in 2015.
Okay,
I was like,
we're getting way ahead of ourselves
anyway.
because that first demo I remember at CES 2013, they put you in the headset and they had this like medieval generic World of Warcraft looking game.
No, it was like Unreal Citadel. I was called something like that.
Yeah,
it was Unreal Citadel.
And it was the demo was like, look behind you. I was like, what? What do you mean? Well, look behind you.
How do I turn around?
How do you turn right? Well, turn your head around, and just the act of turning your head around and being able to see something behind you was a big.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Me, it was South by Southwest, whatever that year was. Cliff Bleszinski was there because he was an early investor in it, and I think it was Nate from Oculus had it in a suitcase or a briefcase, and it was kind of duct taped together pre DK1. But I tried the Unreal Citadel demo, and I remember texting everyone that I knew at South by Southwest saying, "You've got to come over and see this," because I was totally blown away by it.
Well, that's the thing is it's the first time you had that kind of like your brain was fooled into thinking the thing in the computer was real. At least for me.
What was the Citadel? Was it a game or just?
It was a tech demo. It was one of those benchmarking demos. And what was it? It had a castle that you could walk through.
Got it.
It was on a big hill, and there was like a creek, and basically you could walk in a circle up to the castle.
It's basically an Unreal Engine demo scene.
Yeah.
That they hand out with SDK. And they set it up so you could do it in 3D stereo.
DK1 came out. We made one of the first videos. Will, you had backed the Kickstarter as well.
Yeah, ours came later.
And so it was amazing because we were one of the first people who had 2 DK1s. Right, so we were able to play, I believe, multiplayer deathmatch against each other.
Not on that first video.
Yeah,
the first video we only shared mine was later because I woke up 3 hours after Jeremy that day. Oh the thing for me is thinking about how deliberate Oculus was, especially early on with those demos, because like they taught us how to use VR. Like they were putting people, like they built those demos for like people who had never played video games before to be able to use. And I remember the sequence that they did for maybe the DK2 demo, or it could have been one of the ones between DK2 and CV1.
DK2 demo was one where they put a gamepad in your hand, and it was a partnership with Unreal, where one of the demos was they had multiplayer, 2 people on a couch, and you would control a tiny knight on your coffee table.
Really, that was the DK2 one?
That was the DK2 demo, because DK2 had positional tracking.
Yeah.
That's when they were bringing that to GDC.
That was at
and
GDC,
showing that
yeah.
off.
And so you could actually move your head in and lean toward the couch, and they would model the IK of your body. So you would be sitting on the couch, and you would be on the other couch, and we would really wave each other, but like look at each other.
Yeah, we made eye contact.
And that was a big transformational moment.
That one, for me, that one, and the one where they had you standing on the foam, and they had it set up so that the edge of the foam was right over the big
CV1.
drop off. That was CV1, I guess.
OC
At E3.
2 or
That was E3, I think.
but that was the first.
I saw it.
Yeah, when they had the CV1 prototype, it was a big quote unquote surprise that it would be a standing demo, because they were very coy about whether, for legal purposes, Oculus experiences were going to be seated or standing.
Yeah.
And for that demo specifically, they had an Unreal demo where you would be going through a bullet time action sequence. A car would go over you, and you would like weave your body around. And while it wasn't quite full room scale, you did get to walk around like a 1.5 by 1.5 meter pad, and as opposed to having Guardian, you would feel the edge of the pad for the boundary.
But then they positioned you for that demo that's on the top of the building, which I think actually ended up in the Dream Deck thing, the demo reel that they released with CV1.
With the steampunk blimp and stuff, and looking over like this gothic city.
But they had you with your toes dangling out over the edge of the foam when they switched you to that one, and I jumped back and screamed. Like I reacted. I was gonna say, do you remember? So there's 2 demos that were really important, hugely important to me, and were like made me eventually get to the point that I was like, I should quit this amazing job that I have and go do something else. One was the first Vive demo at GDC in 2015.
Yep.
And we hassled Chet for a lot to get both of us in, because they only wanted to let one of us do it, as I recall.
Let me tell you the story, because Oculus had been out. Valve had no hardware. We'd heard rumblings, I think, from people that
the developer kits have been out for Oculus.
Yes,
Not
right.
the-
Not
not
the actual Rift.
Yeah.
But they had, they're the ones making the hardware. And I think Facebook had bought them at that point in 2014.
Yeah.
And we had heard rumors that Valve was going to be working on some actual hardware itself, but it was kind of like we were incredulous. Like
Well, we knew that Michael Abrash was there working on hardware too.
because they had their dev days and their demo days that they would talk about like VR
Well,
very, very seriously.
And when we talked to Gabe about the Steam controller and the Steam Link, when they launched those in 2013 or 2014, they hinted at VR stuff too.
Yeah, and they of course had the TF2 support that would support the head tracking. But it was a big surprise at GDC.
And they were a big part of Oculus's development.
Yeah. That they actually had some hardware. This is the old Vive prototype, right? The one that
The pre.
before the Vive Pre. And no one was able to film anything with it. I think The Verge did get like a short video
Somebody
clip
shot through the window in the door.
window in the door, yeah. And then we talked to PR, and they said every outlet would get one person would get to try this demo. And I remember I said, Will, you should try it.
Yeah.
I volunteered you to try it to get the impressions.
Why did you do that? Just out of curiosity.
Because I felt very generous in that moment.
Okay, that's good. You're very kind.
Yeah, and then you got to try it. You came out like life changed. I remember
You were in it. Then they put you in while I was midway through, right?
No.
Oh.
You got out of demo. You're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I remember Cliffy B was getting a demo like right alongside you.
Yeah.
And he was like bowing to them, like, you guys have solved it for video gaming.
Yeah,
He was blown away
18 minutes.
as
I was
well.
like, it felt like about 30 seconds.
And this was a job simulator, early
So
prototype.
it was Job Simulator, Tilt Brush, the Blue, the bow and arrow game that I don't think they ever released.
Launching just balloons in their loading area.
Launching balloons and shooting with a bow and
Yeah.
arrow. And maybe one other thing. I can't remember what the last one was.
And
But
then we
yeah,
were going to
it
do
was-
some video impressions, and we went out to the main lobby, and then Chet came out and stopped us in the middle of filming and said, "You guys, let me get you in the second demo."
Yeah.
And so we very
You
graciously
got to go in and
together
do it.
and then do our impressions.
It was it was. I've gone back and watched that video a couple of times because it is a moment that changed my life. I found it took us 45 minutes. I think we talked about it for like 40 minutes, and neither of us got there to the thing that was important about it. But eventually we both did, and it was the difference. The hands made it turns out were the important thing. And then that was reinforced at E3 later that year when we saw when Oculus, Chris Journey, and sat down and put us both through the Oculus Touch demo, what became the toy box.
Yeah.
And when you saw another person in VR and like it was just like a wireframe head and shoulders and hands, and that was enough for your brain to treat that as a person, I was like, oh, okay.
I remember,
I get this.
I think it was 2015. I saw you guys did a demo at Swiss Next where you had to like walk around with a torch.
Oh yeah,
and you were
with the Vicons,
multiplayer,
You
and
could
you
throw
threw the torch to each other.
Yeah.
And caught it.
It was
And
so it was a
caught it.
physical torch.
Physical torch with
Yeah.
trackers on it.
The best part of that video is watching the person giving us the demo. This the programmer, this engineer, this woman, and she's clearly like nonplussed about the whole thing. And like we throw the torch and we're doing our silly bit, and she's like, "Okay, all right, whatever." Clap, clap, clap.
Yeah.
And I think that video made it on Reddit, or at least
That video
a
was
clip of that video.
so it's funny. That was the time that like we the Reddit folks started being really kind to us at our Oculus, especially, and sharing all of our stuff, and like they got really excited about it, and in like them being excited about that stuff made it much easier when we would call Valve or Oculus and be like, hey, we want to do something. They'd be like, yeah, sure, of course, because they knew that the Reddit communities, which were the truest of true believers, would be stoked about it. That one, and then the Birdly, which was the Swiss Next thing the next year.
You liked Birdly that much?
Oh God, Birdly was so fucking cool. It was a hydraulic thing that you laid on and put your arms out and flapped your arms smooth. There was a fan in front of it, and just having the fan in front of it, moving a little tiny bit of air in front of your face when it felt like made you feel like you were flying. It was very cool.
We could build one.
I know.
Birdly is installed in San Jose permanently.
Yeah, there's
really?
one in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah.
I didn't get to try hand tracking or the Vive demo until probably E3 of the following year when you guys had tried it. But I had the same. That was my first experience with hand tracking.
It was out the next year.
Well, it might have been GDC. I don't remember, but it was before it was out, and it was after you guys had tried it.
You came to my house and used the pre too.
Yeah, but I tried the first time I tried it was at an event.
Okay.
I was at a Valve booth, and just making the balloons. That's really the only thing that I remember from that whole experience because it was so different from anything I'd ever tried. And batting them,
Yeah.
and hitting them down. I remember getting teary-eyed. I think that's the only time of like technology has struck me that way.
I remember walking to the edge of the ship deck in the blue and leaning over the railing to look over the edge. And the guy from Valve who's running the booth put his hand on my chest. He said, I'm going to put your hand on your chest so you don't fall over. Because I would have kept leaning. I was ready to push up against the railing and go all the way over. It was amazing.
And it's very appropriate because and we're talking about bookending. This is the week that the Oculus Quest comes out and the Rift S comes out, and of course we have the Valve Index in a couple of months, and it still feels like a little bit like the early days, especially in the AR space.
It feels pretty transitional. Like VR feels like we're into second gen headsets now, and like the markets are going in different directions, and that's probably the right choice for everybody involved. I'm really like I think we're through the dark times on VR and we're into the new out of the what is it the Gartner people call it, the trough of despair.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so because I think we can see the leaps and bounds that the technology has made over the past 7 years.
Yeah.
But newcomers won't have, and I wonder if putting on a Quest isn't as revolutionary for them as we think it will be.
So the thing for me is that VR is still revolutionary, whether the enthusiasts like lost interest along the last 2 years as things like because it takes 2 years to make a game at this point, and I think that anytime I put somebody new in a headset, they feel the same. Like the level of excitement is still very high if they've never tried it before, whether it's the Quest or the Vive or the Oculus or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the Quest is going to be a big, hopefully, will be a big inflection point because as I have complained I was a believer in VR from the very beginning, and since that first seminal experience I had with that DK1 back in South by Southwest, the degree to which VR has evolved, if I'm being honest, I've been a little bit underwhelmed by it. I thought it would be further along by now, and I'm a little bit like, come on, where's the really kind of game changing stuff? Part of the reason for that is just because I'm not, even though I have a Rift at home and a Vive, I'm just not inclined to put them on that often because just the process of getting into VR, as you know, you got to start up the PC, boot all the apps, put on the headset, make sure your tracking is still good from last time. There's a big barrier to entry. I think and then once you're in, you're getting tangled up in the wires, and it feels very, very prototypical.
Yeah.
I think that the Quest, we had the Go, but it was very, very bare bones. I think the Quest, which seems like the first fully untethered, standalone, fully, all bells and whistles VR, feels like now the new, like we kind of had like the soft opening, and now it just feels like the real thing is beginning. And you got to remember, talking about people not being that impressed by it, you got to remember the vast majority of the people have still not experienced it.
That's it.
It's still very much for the hardcore. It's for people that either have it on their PC, it's for people that have it on PlayStation 4, which is the PSVR is probably, at this point, the most mainstream iteration of it than it is. And it's still a thing that you have to plug into another thing with a whole shitload of cables.
Preaching to the choir.
So I feel like the big kind of mass moment of like people going, holy shit, this thing is amazing. I don't think that's happened yet because the majority of VR experiences are out there. There's a really, really high barrier to entry.
Yes.
Most people haven't even tried it.
But to hear us just talk about our experience with the first Vive experience, I got teary-eyed. He changed his career. To hear that without having done VR yet, you might have expectations. And then you put the headset on, even one of the ones that came out this year, and you realize, the field of view is actually quite narrow. I can see the pixels. It's not that high resolution.
Yeah, it kind of looks like I'm looking through, goggles. You can still, it's not fully around you.
But so you guys are nerds. I've done hundreds of VR demos, right? Like I've shown people VR the first time, literally hundreds of times, and people don't notice that the field of view is narrow. They don't notice that the headset's bulky. They notice that the whale swims up to the railing and looks them square in the eye, and that they can draw three-dimensional shapes in space and see three-dimensional shapes in space, and that they can job, right? They don't give a shit about the headset's the screen door. Like if you ask them about screen door effect, they're not going to know what the fuck you're talking about because they're not horrible nerds.
Part of how intuitive VR is, that's one of its benefits. Like anyone can just put these within minutes understand how to do an action, right? Because it's a natural movement. And that also works against it because then they don't make the connection that this is a hard problem that was solved.
Well, so the challenge for developers is to give people problems that they can solve with the things that their monkey brains know how to do that feel novel and exciting and magical.
And it's tough because it's not an experience that can be in any way communicated to you remotely. Like the only way to experience it is to put on the headset.
Well, you can listen to somebody talk for an hour, but it's not the same.
It's not even. Or you can watch any number of videos, but it's not the same as putting the thing on.
I actually think I remember we were pissed that they wouldn't let us capture video out of the Vive stuff, and I think that in retrospect that was 100% the right choice, because if you saw shaky cam video of your head walking around the whale thing or the tilt brush or whatever, it would have not been good.
I'm hopeful because of stuff like The Void, like really high quality experiences that people can try without purchasing the hardware. Mm-hmm. Because I went through The Void the first time with people that had never done it before, and they were absolutely blown away. And they didn't mention any of the tech details. They were just like, I just had this amazing real life / technology experience, and there was a good story behind it too. And it was worth every cent, and I'm going to tell a ton of other people about it.
It's been very successful, right? Void in Anaheim and all the places that they're now opening in New York and San Francisco. And outside Anaheim, where you have the Star Wars fans doing the Star Wars Void experience, I think people are very satisfied, and everyone's focusing on the content. No one's focusing on how heavy the backpack is, or the resolution, or the field of view. It's novel for a lot of those people, and the content is the thing that they care about.
I talked to the zero latency guys who do installation based stuff too, and they said, look, people come back and play like they used to do paintball, right? They're coming back to do the multiplayer combat VR stuff on the reg, and they have teams forming and leagues forming and all that stuff, and it's because it's engaging. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason VR with hands is interesting is because it's the most native computer interface for our brains that we have yet. Right, there's no translation between like the cursor moving on the screen and looking at 2D windows and stuff. Anyway, old, we're retreading.
We haven't done this for any other segments, but I'm curious what we all have in mind for VR, what we'd like to see, what we expect to see.
Both VR and AR, or VR specifically?
Let's stick with VR in the next 10 years.
I mean, I think the goggles that we have today are going to be unrecognizable 10 years from now. Look at the difference between an iPhone 10 and an iPhone 4. Actually, they look exactly the same. There's a notch now.
I want to see a more streamlined software experience where it feels less like discrete apps are opening and closing. Something more unified.
So more like a Windows kind of experience.
Yeah, like an OS. Yeah, an OS, but that makes sense for the VR space and where applications and experience can load seamlessly. You jump in game, you're out of a game. There's no loading screen.
Yeah.
Nothing that makes it feel like it's separate.
I wonder if we'll get to the point where the compute is offloaded entirely. Like if the processor on the device is simply some sort of receiver.
Just so you're getting an NDI stream or something from.
Well, I mean, isn't that? I mean, just think about applying what Stadia is doing.
Exactly.
To VR.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the latency for Stadia isn't outside. I mean, it is right now, but if everybody has fiber, then you're not outside the realm of possibility of doing like the CPU part and the rendering part local.
Well, and when 5G comes along, it's going to be. I think that a lot of that stuff's going to go away as well.
Yeah, 5G. The story on 5G is not. Is represented is not entirely accurate. Like
5G isn't super duper fast.
5G needs a real close line of sight, and it needs a massive increase in number of installed nodes in order to get the speed that they're promising on every place.
Yeah, but we said that about 4G 10 years ago. It'll get there.
Well, 4G mostly uses the same towers that 3G used.
Yeah,
so they have to put more towers out for 5G. Anyway,
well, you're talking 10 years in the future. I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah. Well, we'll have 7G then.
Foregone conclusion, we'll have eye tracking by then, I hope. Right?
I mean, we have eye tracking right now.
No, I mean in every VR headset.
I would assume so. I think that's the next big leap. Yeah. I think like if you have a first gen Vive, I think buying the new headsets is much less interesting until they have eye tracking versions.
I think in the way that we talk about Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild, like we should be talking about VR games in that same breath. 5 years from now,
what will be the Mario for VR?
I mean, this would not be good for my life in general, or for most people that would try it. But what I want is a really compelling, persistent world that you can go into and spend time, whether it be a Warcraft type experience or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like a big, I feel like a big, persistent online social type world or game is that exists in VR is that'll be the killer app.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, whether it's Oasis or some type of metaverse.
Have you spent any time in Rec Room?
I've spent some time in Rec Room. I've spent some time in a bunch of. For me, some of the most fun experiences that I've had. My number one favorite experience. Bridge Crew is my number one favorite VR thing. And part of what makes that fun, I would say 90% what makes it fun, is the interaction with other players. I've been in a bunch of those. I've been in a bunch of those VR, just those chat apps where you're just in a virtual environment, just chatting, just sitting around a campfire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird and so fun to be sitting around a campfire and say, "Where are you?" "I'm in San Francisco." "Where are you?" "Oh, I'm in Kansas," or "I'm in India," or whatever it might be. But you're making eye contact. It's really magical. And I think that in much the same way that this led to a revolution in regular flat panel TV screen gaming. The persistent, the online, the social interaction element, whether that's in the form of a game or whether it's just in the form of a space, a really compelling space where you can go and hang out and have your second life, so to speak, I think is going to be a big part of it.
When we talk about hardware in terms of opposing views of increasing quality of experience versus lowering the friction of getting in, and Oculus has done a great job creating devices that now very easy to get in, right? Even if you're plugging into a PC or you're using the Quest. But on the software side, we want to see a decrease in the friction of getting into some form of entertainment, some form of social.
Well,
and I think there are too many layers right now still between you and the content.
Load screens are so much more damaging in VR when you don't have anything to do but look at the black screen than they are on your computer when you can look at you can just engage with the world around you for the 10 seconds that a level's loading.
They're still using the old game console analogy with menus and load screens, and I think all of that has to go away.
Well, and honestly, if the VR manufacturers expect us to take our attention away from the real world, then they need to give us access to things like your social networks and your Instagram feed and web browsers and email and all that stuff, which sounds horrible when I say it out loud.
And as great as low as the barrier is right now this year with the new headsets, I still think comfort is going to be a major factor for people. I mean, you say that people focus on the content, but I do think that for a certain percentage, the weight of the Quest is going to be an issue after extended periods of time. And once we get the varifocal lenses for focusing and correct IPD adjustments, and we can create higher resolution screens and give people just a better sense of comfort in the device, that'll be really important.
I mean, when I say the hardware doesn't matter, I'm talking about for first impressions. Like the first impression of somebody who's trying VR for the first time, they don't notice any of that stuff. When you spend 10 hours in a headset, you're going to start picking it up. And that's coming. People spend time. I really hope Oculus releases usage stats about the first wave of Quest people, because I want to see how much time people are spending in Beat Saber. I want to see how much time they're spending in Rec Room and all of the different things that are available.
All right, let's wrap up VR. I don't know if we want to do any final segments. You want to do a grumpy old man segment? Are we gonna do a things that annoy us? I would love.
You want to do it?
Let's do a things that annoy us, and I want to. I want to hear some
Gary,
riffing
Norm.
between Jeremy and Gary.
Things that annoy me.
To set this up, Gary.
That's so mean.
It's so out of character. Is what
Jeremy
I'm
has a notes document on his phone that he adds to. It's like Arya's kill list on Game of Thrones,
Well,
but
I
it's
don't-
the things that annoy him over the years. Anytime he realizes, and every week we've been going through one of them.
Jeremy Williams' enemies list,
As you said, I'm pretty low key about most things in life.
except for the things that annoy you.
But every now and then, and I want to say, just off the top, this segment has been very therapeutic for me. And what I've realized, I don't mean to shoot this segment in the foot, but I realized that I need to calm down a little bit. I realize
It's
that
very self-reflective.
I realize that I've taken things too seriously, and that maybe this segment has helped me realize that. And
You're one of the most mild-mannered people that I know.
This has been free therapy, and I appreciate it.
He had a lot of rage built up. You had no idea.
I mean, I haven't listened to these segments. Like when you do, do you like really go off on one?
Let's get an example.
Depends how much coffee I've had. Well, we've talked about jump cuts and the people saying width first and height.
Wait, you don't like height?
There's no such word.
Wait, what is that?
No such word. People say it.
You mean height?
People say height instead of height because
add
they
an H at the
just
end.
said width.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
This
it
is like
happens.
exactly.
Listen for it. They're out there.
I never realized that people pronounce the T in exactly.
We've talked about if you make a good point and people respond to you by saying right.
Yeah.
That was our first one, I think.
As if they had
I was
the
here for
thought
that one.
before you said it.
Okay.
Takes it away from you.
Okay.
It annoys me.
the backing in.
Add to the conversation.
Oh, what's wrong with backing in?
No,
No,
Jeremy's a fan
people
of backing
should
in.
back in.
It's a parking spot.
People who don't back in annoy me. It's just a lack of foresight, because you're gonna want to have backed in. You should do it.
Do you back into your garage?
Yes, it's much safer to back in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always safer to back in because you have driven down the road or the pathway and you see what's on the sidewalk.
My neighborhood's all front parkers.
Yeah.
And I'm a back parker, and they look at me like I'm weird.
Suburbia is a little different because you actually can see.
No.
But in the city and in parking lots, you can't. Now, we had a lot of people respond to me saying that's bad because it takes up time. It doesn't take that much time if you're good at it.
Yeah.
But it also, if it's going to take up time, fine, pull in. But, when you have nobody behind you, back in. It makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
When you're going to leave, you can see everything.
Your car probably has a little camera even that makes it easier to back in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learn to use it. So these are the things that we've talked about. You want a new one?
Yeah, let's get a new one.
Let's talk about the big one. Let's.
Oh, whoa,
let's
this is
Whoa.
this is the
All
one.
right, here we go.
And you guys are,
Misogyny,
I always
racism.
wonder, like, are these segments going to be ones that everybody just like acknowledges and just forgets, doesn't bother with, doesn't talk about it? But let's talk about the pants. Let's talk about people wearing their pants way down below their waist. You've seen it.
This is a straight up Andy Rooney bit from like 1994.
And
You just talking about saggy pants?
I'm not just saggy, because we've had saggy for a long time, and this is not a certain segment of the population that do this.
You're saying you're not racist.
I am not.
Okay.
You always, whenever we're on a show
You're
together,
talking about people? Okay.
we were all talking about Star Wars, and suddenly I don't like Episode 7, and suddenly I'm some like
No, that wasn't what I said.
misogynist.
No, I said specifically your complaint isn't the misogynist complaint. I was saying
You wanted to highlight that.
I wanted to get out in front of it because when people say I don't like episode 8, 7, 8. 8.
7.
No, we were talking about Last Jedi.
It's 8. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, then anyway, it doesn't matter.
But why does it matter that I can see somebody's underwear?
You know what? I mean,
Is it the underwear that's the problem?
and I want to be clear. Like, this is one of the things that doesn't just annoy me, because it doesn't really annoy me. It just intrigues me. Like, how are they doing that? And why are they doing that?
Like the mechanics of keeping the pants up.
Why are you letting your pants hang down, like wear them like at the top of your thigh? Why?
It's pretty uncomfortable to have pants around your waist, frankly.
Is it though?
If overalls were socially acceptable, I would wear overalls.
So what amazing, it's like a magic trick. You've seen this, right? Like you guys are looking at me like this is new. Like you guys have all noticed this,
I've
right?
heard-
Yeah.
Sure.
People like pad the pants and they're just like, how are they not falling down?
Suspenders?
How? I swear to God, like
Inside the t-shirt suspenders?
I thought for sure these guys are wearing suspenders. This is the style choice, and to get there, it's like hairspray. It's like their hair doesn't actually do that, right? It's like they had to do it. They had to apply something. They had to augment themselves to create this style. So the pants hanging down must be suspenders because there's no way they would stay there, right? But they're not. They're not suspenders.
How'd you find this out? Did you go ask somebody?
No, you watch them. And then when they're walking, they have to hold their freaking pants up. They have to.
With like a hand in the front or the back or the
now,
side?
Why do this? Why? It's not, if you like it has a vibe of like looking like you're bad, you know, like you're counterculture and like you don't mess with me. But like if I mess with you, who's gonna outrun the other person, right? You got your pants hanging down. You're gonna like waddle, and I'm gonna be running
Until they pull their pants up.
Chafing is a real problem though, Jeremy. What if their pants are too tight and they wanted to wear them low so they don't get chafing around the waist?
It just makes zero sense to me. Like it's not. It's like whatever.
This is the
about-
big one.
whatever-
I'm surprised that this is the big
Oh,
one.
this is the one I
like,
noticed.
have you
and
ever-
I think about the most.
Engaged with people about this?
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
Have you ever yelled at kids on the street and hey, yo, pull up your pants?
No.
Is this a youth thing, you think? Or is
It's
this
not, because the first person I ever saw do it was older than I am.
Wow.
And the first person
Who
I
was
ever
it?
saw do this was Aaron Loeb, right?
Aaron Loeb wore low pants?
Yes, one day at Games Radar, there he was walking on. I was like, wow, how are they staying up?
That was the first person you saw with low pants?
Yeah.
What was that, like 1998?
It was like, no, it was like 1999.
Yeah. You never saw anyone with low pants before the late 90s?
No. You know, I moved around a bit. Maybe there weren't low pants people in Madison, Wisconsin as many. I don't know.
Wow.
Moved here. Maybe it's a here thing. Like,
In middle school, the kids would call it sagging.
that's what it's called? Like
It's
it has
called sagging.
I love this. I didn't know that.
Wow. Did you ever have, were you allowed to sag, Norm?
No.
No.
I can see, I met your parents.
Now, I think by our grandparents' standpoint, like we would all be sagging. Like my grandfather wore his pants like up to his belly button.
Well,
you know?
the pants are cut lower these days.
Yeah, it used to be the other way around. The
Yeah.
the oldies would have their pants all the way up.
Yeah, there is a Wikipedia page for sagging.
It's called sagging.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that's
I gave you the
that's,
name.
The more you
that's
know.
not what I'm talking about.
I know, but it's degrees of it. Look, degrees of it.
Yes.
That's not sagging. That person's pants are all the way off.
Full-fledged underwear.
So
So is the
the origin, the style. I'm just going to read from the Wikipedia
Yeah,
page.
do
I'm
it.
sorry. The style was popularized by skaters and hip hop artists in the 1990s. It later became a symbol of freedom and cultural awareness among some youths, or a symbol of the rejection of the values of mainstream society.
That's kind of what I implied.
And is often claimed the style originated from the United States prison system where belts are prohibited.
Ooh, damn.
Wow.
Interesting.
And a lack of appropriately sized clothing in the prison system. So ill-fitted clothing.
Right.
You are forced to
Yeah.
because, and so it is a statement.
Why are belts prohibited? Because you can kill somebody with a belt?
Yeah, or yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So there you go.
Grim.
That was grim.
The anthropological
Kishore just made a hand gesture.
That was
dive
grim.
into that.
I appreciate
and
that.
hopefully that gives you a sense of the fashion sense behind it.
So by standing up against this, basically what you're saying is, I, Jeremy Williams, am the man. I am standing up for the way that my parents and their parents before them wore their pants.
Why does it bother you though? I understand like things that bother me, like I don't know, Wi-Fi on an airplane is terrible. Like, why even bother having it if it's going to be that bad? That affects me because when I'm
Yeah.
on an airplane,
Right.
I like you're making a promise of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi on a flight is one of the greatest. When it works, it makes the flight go much quicker. But it's just an incredible waste of time because it never works. So that annoys me because it's affecting me. I'm not getting the thing that was promised. But if someone else wants to walk around the street wearing pants in a arguably silly fashion, how is that affecting you in any way?
I appreciate that you do think it's silly. To be honest with you, none of the things that annoy me affect me in any way, shape, or form, and I am not proud of it. These are not things that I think everyone should share the view of necessarily, although I'm curious why they don't. No, and I don't like, if Wi-Fi drops out on a plane, I think of the Louis C.K. bit where he's like, we should all be amazed it worked for 5 minutes.
Right.
And I hate junk mail. I hate the things that annoy everybody. But these are the things that I don't hear people talking about that catch my eye, and I wonder why the world is like this. And so it's not necessarily things that annoy me; it's things that I question.
Hey, so when you put gas in the car, which I know you don't do anymore, but you have to put the zip code in.
Yeah.
Does that annoy you?
That annoys Will.
You slide the card, and then it's like, hey, what's your zip code?
Hates that.
Why does that annoy you?
I just don't want to. I don't have to fucking type my number in. I go to that gas. I
How
go to
is
the
that
same
any,
gas
how is that
station
any
every
different
time.
than putting in your PIN?
It's security.
It's one extra digit.
I don't use my debit card to buy gas usually.
Do you use
points.
two-factor
No, I
on
don't.
websites?
No. Yes, but that's different because I just hit the
Thankfully,
button and it all goes in the
gas
same place.
stations now take Apple Pay, and you can just use your Apple Pay.
My gas station. I look. It annoys me because I go to the same gas station every time, and they should know my card and know that like I live 3 blocks from here, and this is where the gas comes from.
Given that I'm healed, let's put a bullet in this segment.
Okay.
But let me knock off the last 2 on the list.
Oh, let's do it. Oh, yeah,
wow.
We got time for that.
While we're on the jeans topic,
Okay.
how do you guys feel about people putting rips in their jeans right after they buy them?
My rips in
Like
my
where?
jeans are
Right on the
naturally.
the knee?
Usually it's in the knee. Sometimes it's several times down the leg. Just seems to me that's an old rip. You didn't put that there.
that are in the old-fashioned
You
way by
earned it,
wearing the jeans
which is exactly
for
what
years.
you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But some people, they put rips
Why
in
did you look
in
at
their
Kishore?
jeans.
Does he have ripped jeans?
I don't have ripped jeans.
Sometimes he has thoughts on these.
My jeans are also properly along my waist.
Yeah.
Never go full jort. That's why.
Oh, never go full Jord.
I've always been curious about jorts. I've never had jorts.
This is probably in the same category. It's like, well, if they want to do something like that, why wouldn't you just let them?
Yeah,
Right?
if that's a look that they want, that
Yeah.
makes them feel good about themselves, live and let live.
Yeah, why are you ruining your jeans? You just bought them.
Jeremy's bringing his Midwestern
Because
values to the
They're their
hippie
jeans.
to
No one's coming
California.
around. No one's coming into your house in the middle of the night and slashing up your jeans. That would be a legitimate complaint.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as silly. I don't know.
Next time I come to Jeremy's house, I'm bringing some scissors.
It's just weird. Like just you
Perfectly
It's a
good
look.
pair of jeans.
It's that distressed
Yeah, it's
look. Is it?
fashion.
That's some people like that look.
I think
You're-
we're starting to understand Jeremy
Yeah.
is not into fashion.
He's a practical guy.
fashion.
Yeah.
Fashion. Isn't fashion like buying nice clothes or like whatever kind of clothes you want and then putting
No.
them on? And why do you have to?
Clearly, you've never watched any Project Runway.
That's different.
No, that's fashion.
All right, let's go with the
What's
last
the other one? What's the last one?
Let's end this.
When your phone goes to sleep before you finish reading the list of grievances off your notes app.
Let me alienate every other YouTube channel. So
Oh no.
you know when YouTubers they get on what's the first thing they say?
Hi, I'm Will
hey,
from
everybody.
Tested.
No,
Like and subscribe.
no.
No, that's the last thing they say.
No.
They say, "Hey, what's up, everyone?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
they say, "What's up, guys?"
Yeah, it's conversational.
What am I gonna? I can't respond to you. Why are you asking a question? Don't ask a question.
Wow.
Don't say something like
So,
that.
hey, everyone is okay. What's up, guys?
Yes, that's totally different. It's like it feels like they're getting in the zone, like they're used to being in a conversation with people in real life.
But
and
it's just become a conversational turn of phrase. Like my way of saying hello to people. I say, "How you doing?" I don't fucking want to know how they're doing. I couldn't care less.
But that's
It's
fine.
just a thing you say.
would you say that if you were like
Well,
doing a video? Though?
so-
Say, how you doing?
So, well, you're supposed to say good morning. What if they watch the video at night?
No, just say hi. Hey, everybody.
Oh, it's so boring. You
Why
gotta
is it
mix up.
everybody? You're talking to one person.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, you.
Yeah, the 3 people gathered around
This
your
is how-
computer.
this
What
is
if there's
how-
a plural number of people watching this video with you?
This is how Greg-
let me
it's
try
how
to
Greg
answer
Miller
this.
opens every show. That he goes, "What's up, everybody?" Like this is his whole
Right.
thing.
Everybody does it. Everybody does
It
it.
makes the viewer feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It creates a bond.
I get it. You know what? That's the way of the world now. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Whenever I hear somebody say, "What's up?" I'm like, let me respond. Hold
Everybody
on.
else is more
Let me tell ya.
connected with their content. Jeremy, meanwhile, is pulling further and further away
Like,
from the rest
like-
of the world.
And people like, I'll be honest with you. Even in real life, if somebody says like, "How's it going?" or like, "What's new?" I feel like a tremendous weight of having to like go into it.
Now we know that Gary doesn't care, so you can just say everything's okay.
I know. I think most people probably are on Gary's side, but when people ask that, I take it very literally.
I feel like the annoying thing is when people ask you questions like that and then don't care what the answer is. That's the thing that's legitimate. That's a legitimate grievance.
But isn't that what's going on?
Yeah, but I mean in a personal relationship, not
Right.
with the
So
internet.
are you
friends.
To be fair, on a YouTube video, you could leave a comment saying "What's up."
No, don't ever leave a comment.
Yeah,
That's a
you could
terrible
be like,
idea.
"Here's
The
what is
sky.
up with."
Since you asked, Here's what's up.
That's what I'm saying.
You should do that.
Kind of going through a rough time right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had an awesome sandwich just now. It was
Yeah.
great.
That's what's up.
I kind of feel like I have to poop.
So that's it. That's what annoys me.
Those are. I mean, if those are your problems in life right now, I feel like you're doing pretty good. Those are all pretty menial issues, and they're all
These
very
are clearly important enough to make a segment.
And I say this as one grumpy old man to another. That you have now reached peak grumpy old man. I think kids are wearing their jeans too low. You know,
the YouTubers aren't doing right.
YouTubers are saying pointless things.
Right.
I mean, listen, on the whole YouTube thing, I get it. I watch a lot of YouTube these days because I enjoy watching like game videos and pop culture stuff and things like that. But I get recommended a lot of weird stuff because of the vagaries of YouTube's algorithm.
Yep.
And as an older guy, it doesn't annoy me. I just find it fascinating that there is a whole world and a whole culture now that exists, you know, to the younger generation that I know or understand nothing about. Like, have you been following like the whole like the YouTube beauty, the makeup drama that's been going on
it's
out
so
in the world?
good.
Oh my god, it's I guess it's delicious in a way.
I don't know what you're
but
talking
like,
about.
I don't even want to get into it.
Somebody called somebody else fake on makeup YouTube. That's all you need
There's
to know.
there's a whole world of people who do like makeup tutorials on YouTube, and they have millions and millions of followers, and they've ended up with their own makeup brands and endorsement deals, and it's a big thing in the influencer makeup world. But if you're under 25 years old, you've never heard of these people. I had never heard of these people until it blew up, and I was scrolling through Apple News one day, and it was like BuzzFeed had like gone nuts on this thing that was happening. So that, okay, I'll engage with the young people. I'll see what's going on in the world that I don't know. See if I can educate myself about something that's happening in the millennial zeitgeist. And it's and this whole world of like people doing response videos to response videos to response videos, and it becomes this massive echo chamber of people talking about the most utterly pointless shit you could possibly fucking imagine. And it has huge amounts of it just takes up so much of the cultural space, and it's all a big fucking waste of time. And this is what young people are engaged with now. And
We should start podcasts.
It could all be solved if people didn't say "What's up, guys?" at the front.
If only.
If only.
Thank you.
Maybe Jeremy's right about all this stuff.
Oh, I am right about it.
I don't
all
think
this
we're
stuff.
we're moving in the wrong direction. We're not moving. We're not going to get back to where we thought we were going to be. It's going to move always toward that direction.
Pants are going to get
There will
lower
be-
and lower,
Yep.
saggier
There'll
and
be
saggier.
more inane videos, and hopefully we'll balance that out with other bits of culture.
As long as VR gets better.
Yeah.
You can always escape into VR.
That's it.
But then people in VR start wearing saggy pants, and
It's
Jeremy will be screwed all over again.
What's up?
Thankfully, you can just mute them, right? you can change their
Blur out the
avatars. Yeah.
saggings.
That will do it for this episode, this very special 501st episode. I want to thank you, Gary, for coming in.
Hold on, nobody's going to die at the end of this?
Nope. Gary, do you want to point people to anything you're working on? Anything you want to promote?
My Twitter as usual is at Gary Whitta, GaryWhitta. You can follow me on there. That's where most of my stuff is. Might have some things to announce soon, but again, if you follow my Twitter, and that's kind of gateway to all my shit.
Will, thank you as well. Thank you for creating the podcast, creating the site, and being on the show
You were
today.
there too.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Is that a new laptop?
No, it's the same one.
Okay.
2016 Razor.
And
You gotta ask me if I have anything to plug?
yeah, anything to plug?
No, I'm good.
Okay, there you go.
I do a podcast with Adam Savage and Norman Chan called Still Untitled, The Adam Savage Project. It's on usually once a week.
Usually whenever we can find time to
If
record.
we can get, some of us are busier than others.
And of course, Jeremy and Kishore, thank you guys so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And thank you all out there, especially those of you, I don't know how many of you out there have listened since episode 0. If you are, let us know.
Yeah,
Let
post
us
a
know.
comment. Not
What's
on
up,
YouTube.
guys?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do we have an outro this week?
I have the first ever outro submitted to the forum that I can still access.
Wow.
This is 7 years old. It's by a submitter named Maddened Man, and I have no idea if it will work.
Fingers crossed.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Test it.
We're broadcasting to all intelligent life in the universe, and to the rest of you, the secret is to bang the rocks together. Yeah.
Test it. That's a Douglas
That's
Adams
just a
quote.
Douglas Adams ripoff.
Yeah. You
Nice
just
of that.
stealing other
I
people's
can't possibly
bits, Gary.
take credit for that.
Jesus Christ. Bit infringement.
All right. See you guys next time.